Chapter 300. Boom! Boom! Under the explosions, no one could see Dongfang Qingzhu's figure at all. They only knew that he was being beaten up. On the side, Dongfang Yeching's eyes were red, and she broke out in cold sweat for Dongfang Qingzhu. Answer the Baron's state. Do you have a death wish? Suddenly, Dongfang Qingzhu's voice came from a pile of undead. Then, a huge formation, mysterious and obscure as if it was made of thousands of stars, floated up. The formation rotated, and multicolored light erupted. Lightning and flames rose, crushing thousands of undead. Then, everyone saw Dongfang Qingzhu appear in front of them in a sorry state. The green wood sword in his hand had been broken, but his aura did not diminish. His eyes flickered with a mystic light. The 8 trigrams floated in his left eye, and the 9 palaces flashed in his right eye. He threw away the green wood sword, and a sharp sword condensed from spiritual power appeared above his head. He formed seals with both hands, and another huge sword formation was formed. Suppress them all! Dongfang Qingzhu roared and pushed out with both hands. 2 formations fell on Wakako and Xiao Qingyi respectively. In an instant, Wakako was drowned by lightning and flames, and Xiao Qingyi's body was pierced by sword auras, and blood splattered out. As expected of the prodigy, ranked 21st in the eastern state. A sword formation in one hand and a 10-direction formation in the other. How terrifying! Exclamations sounded all around. Everyone was amazed by Dongfang Qingzhu's strength. However, the exclamations only lasted for a few breaths, and the people around were so shocked that they could not speak. Wakako's body was filled with purple light, and his body was as steady as a rock, as if it was made of purple gold. Lightning and flames bombarded his body, but they could not hurt him at all. Wakako pushed out with both fists. The fist aura was not fancy, but it was extremely violent and domineering. The domineering aura filled the air, and the fist aura was like a rainbow. With one punch, the formation was immediately shattered. At the same time, the wounds on Xiao Qingyi's body healed, and the undead pounced on him. The bones turned into armor, and the long flute in his hand turned into a staff. Wakako, this guy is pretty strong, Xiao Qingyi mocked. If you fight him alone, you'll definitely lose. Bullshit. Lousy alone is enough to suppress him. Ruo Xiao shouted. You stay on the side and watch for me. If you dare to attack, I'll suppress you as well. All right. I won't do anything, Xiao Qingyi said with a chuckle. However, black mist rose up in front of him. Evil wind whistled and dead souls rose from the ground. A black arrow condensed in front of Xiao Qingyi. Whoosh! The arrow tore through the air, piercing through Dongfang Qingzhu's shoulder in the blink of an eye. Blood splattered everywhere. How dare you try to snatch him from me? Ruo Xiao panicked and hurriedly rushed out. She waved her fists and smashed them into Dongfang Qingzhu's body. Puff! This time, Dongfang Qingzhu could not block it. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Before he could land on the ground, white bones appeared beside him and stabbed toward Dongfang Qingzhu's vital parts like barbs. Forget it. Seeing that Dongfang Qingzhu was about to be killed, Jiangchen said softly, There's no need. Boss, this doesn't fit your personality. Xiao Qingyi was stunned. He knew what kind of person Jiangchen was. He would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If the other party wanted to kill him, according to Jiangchen's personality, he would definitely kill the other party. But now, Jiangchen stopped him. Just kill him. There's nothing to be afraid of, Wakako said solemnly. Now, with me here, no one can touch you on the hunting slope. However, Jiangchen shook his head. He had his own concerns. Killing Dongfang Qingzhu was naturally no big deal. However, Dongfang Qingye was still here. Now that Dongfang Qingzhu was dead, Dongfang Qingye would definitely avenge him. Dongfang Qingye's strength was not enough to kill Jiangchen. Therefore, Dongfang Qingye only had one way, to spread the news of Jiangchen obtaining the Tri-Lives Lotus. At that time, she would borrow the hands of others to kill Jiangchen. The Tri-Lives Lotus was extremely precious and could be called a holy, healing medicine. Jiang Chun did not want to be surrounded. Furthermore, everyone in the Wilderness God Dao field was the top 100 paragons and monster incarnates of the various states. I'll spare your brother's life, and you keep it a secret from me. How about that? Jiang Chun sent a voice transmission secretly. You! Despicable! Dongfang Qingye sent a voice transmission with anger. However, she had no choice. If she did not agree, Dongfang Qingzhu would definitely die. Kill! Just as Dongfang Qingye was hesitating, Wakako had already charged in front of Dongfang Qingzhu. His fist descended like a comet. I promise you. At that moment, Dongfang Qingye did not dare to hesitate any longer and hurriedly agreed. Wakako, stop, Jiang Chun said softly and looked at Wakako. Listen to me. Wakako hurriedly withdrew his fist and looked at Jiang Chun in confusion. Are you afraid? Afraid? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and chuckled. Do you think I'm afraid? If you're not afraid, why didn't you kill them? Wakako asked. They wanted to kill you, but you're going to let them go. Why is that? Aren't you afraid? Wakako was domineering. So in his heart, his followers should be the same. Perhaps they should not be as domineering as him, but they should still be unyielding. Now, Jiang Chun's performance seemed to have disappointed Wakako. Boss is never afraid of trouble. Zhang Lu shouted not far away. Don't think you can question my boss just because you're the overlord. Who do you think you are? Is the overlord strong? Fight with me. Stop fooling around. Won't you be laughed at if you fight your own family? Jiang Chun waved his hand and walked up to Wakako. He whispered in his ear, if you dare to talk to me like that again, I'll break your hegemonic body of the heavens. Wakako's expression froze when he heard this. Only then did he realize what he had said to Jiang Chun. He regretted it and felt even more guilty. He avoided looking at Jiang Chun's eyes. Fortunately, Jiang Chun did not mind and only reminded Wakako. At that moment, Dongfang Qingzhu was supported by Dongfang Qingye. They stood in the distance, one with murderous intent and the other with anger in their eyes. The Dongfang siblings died at the hands of the Barren State's overlord and a necromancer. That's not right. Why do the two of them listen to that kid from the king's domain? Around them, everyone was puzzled. They did not know Jiang Chun's identity, nor did they know how famous Jiang Chun was in the Barren State. In their eyes, Jiang Chun was just an ant in the king's domain. Don't do anything to me again. Jiang Chun looked at the Dongfang siblings and said, I'm willing to let you go once, but it doesn't mean there will be a second time. Cherish your lives. After that, Jiang Chun waved at everyone and said, let's go. Chapter 301. After that, Jiang Chun and the rest left. Half an hour later, they arrived at a bamboo forest. This place was not far from the hunting slope, only 1,000 miles away. The bamboo forest was quiet. Other than the occasional chirping of birds and insects, there was no other sound. And at this moment, there was no one. That was because this place had already been scouted by others. There were no treasures or anything special. Boss, how's your cultivation recovering? Xiao Qingyi asked. How did you guys get up after jumping into the abyss? I'll recover in another 2 or 3 days, Jiang Chun said, but did not tell them what happened in the abyss. The battle here is very intense, Zhang Lu said in a low voice. And the prodigies of the Barren State are being targeted. We're in a bad situation. That's right. I heard that there are a few ruthless people from other states who suppress their realms, Wakako said. They're not weaker than a sage. Oh, Jiang Chun said indifferently. Then, he sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate to recover his cultivation. Zhang Lu and the rest were used to Jiang Chun's indifference. It was as if even if the sky collapsed, Jiang Chun could still be this calm. In the next few days, Jiang Chun had people protecting him while the others went to the hunting slope to fight for Dao seeds. However, although there were Dao seeds, they were very rare. At most, one would appear every day. Sometimes, it would not appear for 3 to 5 days. As a result, the fight for Dao seeds became even more intense. In fact, the number of prodigies from various states who died at the hunting slope had already exceeded 50. 50 people did not seem like a lot, but only 700 people entered the desolate god training ground. Boss, bad news. Something big has happened. Bai Fengyu has been detained. 3 days later, Jiang Chun was still cultivating when Jiang Lu ran back covered in blood. His chest was pierced and the top of his head was cracked. He almost died. Wakako and Xiao Qingyi, who were guarding Jiang Chun, immediately stood up and a cold light flashed in their eyes. Kill him. Jiang Chun didn't say much. He just sat there cross-legged and whispered. Hearing this, Wakako and Xiao Qingyi looked at each other and left without saying anything. Jiang Lu stayed behind, sat cross-legged on the side, and said, "The opponent was too strong, I almost died." "How strong is it?" Jiang Chun asked, feeling a little anxious. He had thought that he would be able to recover his cultivation in 2 to 3 days, but he had only recovered to the middle level of the Martial Highness realm. As for Jiang Chun's original cultivation base, it should be at the upper level of the Venerable realm. There's a young man from the underworld continent who wields a dark green sickle. He's known as the Grim Reaper. Jiang Lu's eyes narrowed as he recalled the scene of his battle with that young man. His eyes flashed with a hint of dread. Of course, it wasn't that Jiang Lu had retreated, but that the Grim Reaper wasn't the only one. There were several other people. When Jiang Lu and the Grim Reaper were fighting, the other 3 people took action and suppressed Bai Fengyu. They even said that if Wakako and Xiao Qingyi didn't go, they would kill Bai Fengyu. Jiang Lu had no choice but to return since he wasn't confident that he could save Bai Fengyu. If it was a one-on-one battle, I would have a 50% chance of winning against him. He's indeed an expert, but his methods are too despicable. Jiang Lu said coldly. "Oh, it seems that Wakako and Xiao Qingyi are targeted." Jiang Chun said softly, "Don't worry, it shouldn't be a big problem with those 2 guys taking action." However, after the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Ruo Xiao staggered back while covered in blood. Seeing this, Jiang Chun already knew the result without Wakako saying anything. Where are they? At this moment, Jiang Chun didn't care that his cultivation base had not recovered. He immediately stood up, and a sharp, killing intent flashed in his eyes. "Don't ask, we're here." At this moment, 4 youths walked over from outside the bamboo forest. Beside them, Xiao Qingyi fainted and was dragged on the ground. Bai Fengyu's cultivation base was sealed, and she was being pushed over. I heard that the tyrant and the necromancer have the same big brother. Today, I want to see what kind of person this big brother of theirs is. At this moment, the leading youth was holding a green sickle. His eyes were dark, and there was a trace of murderous aura between his brows. Of the 3 youths beside him, one was holding a giant bow, another was empty-handed, and the last one was holding a pure gold sword. All 4 of them were at the upper level of the heaven realm, especially the leading youth. Although his cultivation base was at the upper level of the heaven realm, the aura he exuded far surpassed that of ordinary people. "Let them go." Jiang Chun stepped forward and said, "Whatever you want to do, I'll accompany you. These 2 ants, we really don't care about them." The youngster holding the sickle said with a smile. He kicked Bai Fengyu and Xiao Qingyi in front of Jiang Chun. They were released. However, Jiang Chun was infuriated by her act of letting him go. At this moment, Jiang Chun helped Bai Fengyu and Xiao Qingyi up and asked Wakako and Jiang Lu to take care of them. Then, the sun and moon rays flashed in Jiang Chun's eyes, and the power of heaven and earth burst out from his body. Underworld continent, Xiebu. The leading youth raised his chin and pointed his sickle at Jiang Chun. "Do you dare to come and fight?" "Of course, there's no harm in fighting," Jiang Chun said. "But I want to ask, why must you fight with me?" "Boss, they're from the Martial Pavilion," Wakako said in a low voice. The Underworld continent also has a branch of the Martial Pavilion, and these 4 are from the Underworld continent's Martial Pavilion branch. "Oh," Jiang Chun said softly and looked down. "Then I'll just kill them." "Kill? Huh? Do you have that ability?" "Jiang Chun, you have the protection of the Billow Academy outside, and the Martial Pavilion really can't do anything to you. But who can protect you here? 2 of you are seriously injured and 1 is unconscious. How can you fight against the four of us alone? Xiebu and the other three laughed wildly, especially when they looked at Jiangchen. It was as if they were looking at a dead man. Who said he only has these few people? Immeasurable heavenly venerate. Suddenly, two light voices came from outside the bamboo forest. Then a wine fragrance spread out. Zhao Mujio and Dao Gui flew to Jiangchen's side. Huh, good. The successor of the freedom technique, the successor of the Taoist 9 syllables. You guys are here together. Once I catch all of you, the freedom technique and the Taoist 9 syllables will belong to the martial pavilion. Xiebu and the other three's eyes shone with greed and arrogance. Monk, can Buddhists kill people? Jiangchen ignored Xiebu and the other three. Instead, he looked at Zhao Mujio and asked, I thought Buddhists can't kill? Kill? What's that? Although I'm a Buddhist, I also have a heart of the mortal world. Zhao Mujio said seriously. Immeasurable heavenly venerate. Dao Gui said softly, I rarely kill people. But if I do, I'll kill them all. Chapter 302. Huh? Kill all of them? Where did a stinky Taoist get the courage to say that? A drunken monk, a stinky Taoist, and an ant in the middle of the honorable realm. What can the three of you do? You are just ants. Xiebu and the other three sneered. At the same time, spiritual energy exploded from their bodies, and a dark aura filled the air. It's time to be serious today, Jiangchen said softly. When he finished speaking, he was already in front of Xiebu. He punched out like a dragon, and his entire body looked like it was made of gold. The violent power of heaven and earth covered his hands, and he seemed to have the strength of 1,000 pounds. Xiebu swung the sickle in his hand, and a cold light burst out. There was also a dark aura that seemed to come from hell, and it was bone-chilling. Boom! Along with a few explosions, Jiangchen's palm hit the green sickle like a boulder. In an instant, the dark aura on the sickle was shattered, and the sickle was shattered. However, Xiebu did not seem to care. Darkness exploded in his eyes, and a violent mental strength rushed into Jiangchen's mind. Mental strength attack? Will it work? Jiangchen snorted. His mental strength was so powerful that it was impossible for him to be intimidated. What? Xiebu exclaimed. However, he did not stop attacking at all. He formed a seal with his hands, and the shadow of a ghost god appeared behind him. When he punched out, the shadow of the ghost god also punched out. The punch was like a dark stone pillar that distorted the void and emitted a dark aura. It went straight for Jiangchen's face. Jiangchen narrowed his eyes and felt a sense of danger. He moved back, and 9 Luoxing gates rose from the ground. Boom! Boom! The 9 ancient portals were standing in front of Jiangchen, but they were all shattered by the fist radiance one after another. In just 3 breaths' time, all of the 9 Luoxing gates exploded, and the pitch-black radiance of the fist dashed up to Jiangchen. True 10,000 trees and 1,000 hands. Jiangchen narrowed his eyes, and the emperor's vines appeared behind him. The vines were like giant arms as they shot forward. Amidst the explosions, the purplish-gold vines continued to explode. At the same time, the fist aura also collapsed. Following that, Jiangchen's body burst into flames. The 9 words of battle erupted at the same time, and his entire body reached its peak state. He took a step forward, and like a ghost, he moved horizontally to the front of Xiebu. At the same time, a ray of cold light condensed in his palm, like a dagger. Bestowal liberation. Accompanied by a light shout, this dagger fell horizontally, directly piercing through the top of Xiebu's head. However, when the top of his head was pierced, Xiebu only let out a muffled groan. A scapegoat talisman appeared in his mind. At the same time, his figure quickly moved to the side. Do you need our help? We've settled it. At this moment, Morning Wine and Dao Gui smiled as they looked at Jiangchen. There were already 3 corpses at their feet. The 3 youths with Xiebu had already been killed by Dao Gui and Morning Wine. Look after Bai Fengyu and the other 2, Jiangchen said in a low voice. He was deeply afraid that Xiebu would suddenly attack Bai Fengyu and the other 2. Jiang Chun, I admit that you're very strong. However, you're destined to die today. At this moment, Xie was furious. With a wave of his hand, a sage's decree appeared. Instantly, the sage's aura erupted, and it was like a desolate force that covered the entire area. Moreover, Xie aura soared. Within 3 breaths, he had broken through to become a quasi-sage. So what if it's a sage's decree? So what if you're a quasi-sage? I'll kill you. Jiang Chen roared, and a green lamp appeared above his head. The green lamp burned with a faint flame, and there was even the sound of ancient scriptures being chanted. Following that, Jiang Chen formed a seal with both hands, and the flame in the green lamp was drawn out and gathered in his hands. A green sword was held horizontally, and he slashed out. 10,000 transformations, heaven slash. Following Jiang Chen's roar, the sword beam was like a green dragon. It actually broke through the void and slashed the sage's decree into powder. Then, the sword beam's momentum did not decrease as it slashed on Xie body. Boom! With a loud explosion, Xie eyes widened. He looked down at his waist and realized that it had been cut in half. Moreover, the violent sword intent carried a trace of green glaze as it burned on his body. What is this? Xie was shocked and furious. His spiritual energy erupted like a storm, wanting to extinguish the flames and sword intent on his body. However, the power of the 10,000 transformations heaven slash was not to be treated as ordinary. In just a few breaths, Xie was burned to ashes by the sword intent and flames. Before you touch my people, you have to think about how to withstand my anger, Jiang Chun said softly. Go repent in the Yellow Springs. What martial technique is this? Fierce. Dao Gui and Chao Mujio were speechless. They thought that if they were hit by this sword, they would most likely die too. It's a very powerful martial technique, Jiang Chen said. Naturally, he could not tell them that this was not a martial technique, but his 10,000 transformations heaven lamp. Then, Jiang Chen and the other 2 helped by Fengyu, and the rest healed their injuries. At the same time, a large group of people gathered outside the bamboo forest. The sounds of battle from before had attracted many people, including some famous prodigies. However, no one entered the bamboo forest. They only stood outside the bamboo forest and looked around. The few powerful people of the barren state are all inside. The tyrant Wakako, the necromancer Shao Qingyi, and someone said to be the successor of the samurai. Bai Fengyu, the daughter of the White Emperor City, a Taoist priest, and a drunk monk. These people are very powerful. Everyone was discussing outside the bamboo forest. Some people were secretly stirring up trouble, saying that Jiang Chun and the rest were enough to suppress the prodigies of the other states. Naturally, there were people who were unhappy with this provocation. However, many people here had seen the strength of Wakako and Shao Qingyi. They had also seen Jiang Lu fight before. Therefore, no one dared to enter. I heard that Xie brought a few people in. How's the battle going? After a dozen breaths, a golden-haired young man arrived outside the bamboo forest. His arrival immediately attracted everyone's attention. Many people even nodded and saluted him. They even opened up a path to the bamboo forest for him. The 8th prince of the Middle State dynasty. He was born with great strength and is a heaven realm martial master. He has a righteous aura and is said to be invincible. Among the prodigies of the 7 states, he is definitely in the top 100. However, before the 8th prince entered the bamboo forest, Huang Jiucheng also appeared. He rushed all the way to the 8th prince and said with a look of disdain, "What? Do you want to go in and spar with them?" So it's the prince of the humanoid dragon tribe. I've heard a lot about you. The 8th prince smiled. It's rare for the barren state to have so many prodigies. Of course, I want to spar with them. Are you? You're not worthy. Huang Jiucheng was as arrogant as ever. He didn't even take the 8th prince of the Middle State dynasty seriously. At this moment, the 8th prince naturally didn't take Huang Jiucheng seriously as well. If I'm not worthy, are you worthy? The 8th prince raised his eyebrows. Our strength is on par. If I'm not worthy, I'm afraid you're not worthy either. I'm not worthy. However, to everyone's surprise, the arrogant Huang Jiucheng actually admitted that he wasn't worthy. Just what was going on? The eighth prince was also shocked. He stared at Huang Jiucheng and thought for a while. Then, he laughed and turned to leave. Huang Jiucheng didn't say much. He stood where he was and looked into the bamboo forest for a while before turning to leave. The remaining people were confused. Two prodigies had left just like that. Chapter 303. There were still many people outside the bamboo forest, and more experts were rushing over. That was because Xiebu and the other three were too famous in the hunting path slope. They were powerful. Now that these people were here, they all wanted to see if Xiebu and the rest could suppress Jiang Chun and the rest. But what was surprising was that the fighting in the bamboo forest had long ended. The battle had ended. But Xiebu and the other three did not come out. Then, there was only one result. Xiebu and the other three were dead. The Barren State's geniuses of this generation have some skills. And that's all. After all, it's just the Barren State. No matter how strong the geniuses are, they're nothing in our eyes. A few extremely powerful geniuses spoke. Their words are filled with contempt for the Barren State. But still, no one dared to enter the bamboo forest. It was as if this bamboo forest had become a forbidden area. If they dare to come to the hunting path slope to snatch the Dao seed, we'll destroy them. They'll probably keep hiding in the bamboo forest. After half an incense stick's time, the few of them left after saying those harsh words. Then the people outside the bamboo forest dispersed. A day later, with the help of Jiang Chun, Bai Fengyu and the rest had recovered from their injuries. After all, Jiang Chun had the undying bird Dao spirit, and its blood was a holy healing medicine. Bai Fengyu and the rest's injuries were just superficial wounds in Jiang Chun's eyes. It's time to make a move. On this day, Jiang Chun got up, his eyes flashing. When he opened and closed his eyes, it was as if the sun, moon, and stars were floating. He walked out of the bamboo forest, and Zhanglu, Wakako, and the rest followed behind him. The Dao seed of the hunting path slope is quite useful to you guys, Jiang Chun said. Isn't that so? It's just that it's too rare. Plus, there are so many experts. It's hard to get one. Zhanglu sighed. If you insist on getting it, it'll definitely be a battle of life and death. What's there to be afraid of? We'll suppress as many as come, Wakako said seriously. Now that we're in peak condition, if we join forces, no one in the hunting path slope can compete with us. You're wrong. Dao Gui curled his lips and glanced meaningfully at Jiang Chun. He said, perhaps he alone can sweep through the hunting slope. Wakako blinked. Although he was not convinced, he had to admit that Jiang Chun was powerful. Most importantly, Jiang Chun's cultivation was only at the upper level of the Martial Highness realm. He had not even reached the Earth realm. With such a cultivation level, he possessed such terrifying battle prowess. Then, when Jiang Chun's cultivation reached the Heaven realm, how many people in the same generation could compete with Jiang Chun? At that time, could Jiang Chun fight against the saints with his Heaven realm cultivation base? Hua Liani and Nayland Mayer didn't come. If they did, I could give them a few seeds of Dao. Jiang Chun said softly, there's also Mo Xingtian. This guy is also loyal. It's a pity that he didn't participate in the young desolate meeting. Boss, I have to remind you, there are really a lot of prodigies in the hunting path slope, Jiang Lu said solemnly. A few of them have already reached the level of a second saint. Second saint? Someone like Xiebu? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. Unless they're true saints, otherwise, As they spoke, everyone had already left the bamboo forest and arrived not far from the hunting path slope. Although it was called the hunting path slope, it was actually a small plain. There were deep pits here. No one knew what caused them. Divine light flickered within every deep pit, and the Dao seeds flew out from these deep pits. Someone had calculated that there were a total of 36 pits in the hunting path slope. Of these 36 craters, there were 3 that were the largest and gave off the most intense divine light. And these 3 pits were also the places where the most Dao seeds were born. Now, These 3 pits were occupied by the 3 great prodigies. No one dared to snatch them. Wakako the tyrant, Jiang Lu, the descendant of the samurai ghost. This group of people is here. After more than 10 breaths, when Jiang Chun and the rest really stepped into the area of the hunting path slope, many people looked over, and there were even a few exclamations. Many of the people here knew Wakako, Jiang Lu, and the rest. They also had some understanding of Bai Fengyu. They even knew a little about Dao Gui and morning and evening wine. After all, these 2 people, one was the successor of the freedom cultivation method, and the other was the successor of the Taoist 9 characters true words. And these people only did not know Jiang Chun. This made Jiang Chun somewhat uncomfortable in his heart. He was both the boss and the master, but these people actually did not know him. This was simply too much. Could it be that I, Jiang Chun, did not have any face? There are 3 big pits here that give birth to the most Dao seeds. One will be born almost every 2 to 3 days. Wakako said, "Why don't we go and snatch these 3 big pits?" "Snatch what?" Jiang Chun said mockingly. "Wait for the Dao seeds to appear by themselves. Why don't we just dig the pits?" At this moment, Wakako and the rest were dumbfounded. Previously, they only knew to wait for the Dao seeds to appear before snatching them. They had never thought of digging pits. But the pits here were not simple. Could they really dig them down? Go dig. Dig the Dao seeds. At this moment, Jiang Chun directly took action. The power of heaven and earth turned into a large shovel and dug into a small pit beside him. Boom! However, just as he dug for the first time, a terrifying impact erupted from the bottom of the pit, causing Jiang Chun to retreat a few steps. "Boss, don't dig anymore. Since this pit can give birth to a Dao seed, it must be extraordinary. How can it be easily dug out by others?" Jiang Lu said, "Let's wait until the Dao seed is born. Then we can go and snatch it. There's no pit that can't be dug." Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. Before everyone's shocked eyes, he summoned the Emperor's Vine. Then, Jiang Chun used his secret skill, 10,000 trees and 1,000 hands, and charged into the pit. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, there was a series of explosions, and a terrifying impact erupted from the bottom of the pit. However, the Emperor's Vine seemed to have taken root here. No matter how strong the impact was, it did not fall. At the same time, the pit was completely dug up by the 10,000 trees and 1,000 hands. It was as if a door to a treasure had been opened. After the small pit was dug up, there were 6 Dao seeds at the bottom. What the F***CK? You can do that. 6? I've been waiting here for so many days, and I haven't even snatched one. This guy has 6 Dao seeds. What are you waiting for? Let's dig too. At this moment, everyone started to imitate Jiang Chun and started to dig the pit. However, not everyone had the ability to dig. After all, the impact from the bottom of the pit was too terrifying. It was protected by extremely powerful seals and arrays. It was difficult for an ordinary person to even stretch a finger in, let alone dig. However, there were still a few people who were extremely powerful. After imitating Jiang Chun, they also dug up the pit and obtained many Dao seeds. Hand them over. There are so many Dao seeds. You can give us a few, right? At this moment, someone started to fight not far away, snatching the Dao seeds that others had dug up. At the same time, more than 10 geniuses appeared around Jiang Chun. These people's cultivation had reached the upper level of Heaven Realm, and 2 of them had even reached Quasi-Sage. Chapter 304. An ant from the barren state is not worthy of possessing a Dao seed. Leave the Dao seed behind, and you can scram. The 2 second sages in the lead said coldly with contempt in their eyes. Jiang Chun chuckled and waved at Wakako and the rest. I'll leave it to you guys. I'll continue digging. So what if you're a second sage? We'll kill you all the same. You want to snatch our Dao seeds? Ask my undead army if they agree. Immediately, little Ruo charged out, carrying a purple light like a purple Tyrannosaurus. Xiao Qingyi waved his hand, and undead creatures were summoned one after another. There were also spells that looked like rainbows rising up from the ground. Jianglu stood in front of Bai Fengyu and faced the attacks of 3 to 4 people. Bai Fengyu stood at the back and unleashed her terrifying spiritual power. There were even frost spells that shot out. Jiang Chen didn't pay any attention to him. At that moment, he came to another deep pit. The Emperor's vine behind him extended tens of thousands of vines and smashed into the deep pit. Because too many Dao seeds appeared all of a sudden, the surroundings were already in chaos. All the prodigies attacked one after another to snatch the Dao seeds. There were even people who died, while covered in blood. Therefore, at the moment, Jiangchen was digging a deep hole by himself. No one had time to pay attention to him. After all, in everyone's hearts, the Dao seeds in front of them were the most important. Wow! 13 Dao seeds? After a dozen breaths of time, Jiang Chun smashed open another deep pit. There were actually 13 Dao seeds buried in it. In an instant, multicolored light shot into the sky from the deep pit, and auspicious signs appeared. 13 Dao seeds? Bring them all to me. An upper-level, venerable realm cultivator also came to snatch Dao seeds. In an instant, the place where Jiang Chun was at attracted everyone's attention. In just a dozen breaths of time, more than 30 people rushed over. The person with the highest cultivation level was a second sage. And in the eyes of this group of people, Jiang Chen's cultivation level was just an ant. So what if I'm an upper-level venerable realm cultivator? Are you looking down on me? Jiang Chen said mockingly. He formed a seal with his hands and a talisman that looked like the head of an evil spirit condensed. Then, the talisman was pressed to the ground. Boom! In the blink of an eye, undead spirits appeared on the ground and in the void around Jiang Chun. The undead strength was at the upper level of the exalted realm. The strength of these undead creatures was still like ants to the people around them. They couldn't hurt them at all. However, the problem was that there were too many undead creatures. In just 3 breaths' time, more than 3,000 undead had appeared. Although they weren't strong enough, their numbers were too great. In the blink of an eye, these 30-plus people were drowned by the undead army. Kid, no matter how many ants there are, they will never be able to defeat a blue dragon. You're just wasting time and struggling in vain. Among the undead, someone roared angrily and killed several undead with a single punch. However, after Jiang Chun put away the 13 Dao seeds, he started forming seals again. The stars in his body rotated, and the power of heaven and earth erupted continuously. Jiang Chen's talismans were formed one after another. After more than 10 breaths, Jiang Chen summoned more than 10,000 undead creatures. More than 10,000 undead creatures occupied a third of the hunting slope's territory. Damn, this is a true necromancer. Xiao Qingyi's face was bitter. He could only summon 1,000 undead at once. Compared to Jiang Chun, he, as a necromancer, seemed a little weak. Battle spirit. At this moment, Jiang Chen formed seals again, and 3 huge doors appeared behind him one after another. Inside the door, there were creatures dressed in battle armor that stepped out, as if they were war generals. Moreover, the cultivation of these 3 battle generals had reached the upper level of the heaven realm. One of the battle generals had even reached the level of a second sage. Necromancer, spirit summoner? 2 rare professions. What the F***CK? One person is equivalent to an army. The group was dumbfounded. Necromancers were a headache to begin with. They could summon many undead creatures. Now, before the 10,000 undead creatures in front of them were dealt with, Jiang Chen summoned 3 battle spirits. F***CK. I'm not fighting anymore. What's going on? He's still summoning? After a few breaths, the people who were still fighting bitterly with a group of undead creatures were all dumbfounded. Some people even broke down directly. This was because after Jiang Chun summoned the 3 battle spirits, he actually started forming seals again. At this moment, 6 doors appeared behind Jiang Chun. Moreover, his other hand was also forming seals, and a large group of undead creatures appeared around him. What the F***CK? This is simply a human wave tactic. Whether it's summoning undead creatures or battle spirits, it requires the support of spiritual power. After summoning so many undead creatures and battle spirits, the spiritual power in his body must be exhausted. Let's hold on a little longer. When the spiritual power in his body is exhausted, these undead creatures and battle spirits will automatically disappear. Some people encouraged and refused to back down. They were still fighting fiercely with a group of undead creatures and battle spirits. However, after half an hour, the group completely broke down. This was because after summoning so many undead creatures and battle spirits, Jiang Qin's aura was still very strong. He did not look like a person who was about to run out of spiritual power. Moreover, Jiang Qin did not care about these people at all. He took the Emperor's Vine and started digging again. Such a powerful Emperor's Vine Dao Soul is being used by this guy to dig holes. He's destroying a heavenly item. Many people were depressed, but they were also envious. Using the top 10 Emperor's Vine Dao Soul to dig holes, this was too extravagant. 8 Dao Seeds. Oh, 16. Wow, 21. Just like that, a group of undead creatures and battle spirits blocked for Jiang Qin, and Jiang Qin started to dig happily. In just half an hour, Jiang Qin had dug 6 deep holes in succession. The number of Dao seeds in his hands reached more than 50. Around him, the group of people could only watch helplessly. The undead creatures and battle spirits in front of them were densely packed. They could not get close to Jiang Qin at all. They could only look on helplessly as Jiang Qin took the doctrine seed into his bosom. Their faces were filled with envy and jealousy. Boom! Buzz! However, when Jiang Qin was going to keep digging, many light screens suddenly rose from the hunting path slope, and an obscure forbidden power broke out. Under this power, the group of people could not control their bodies and were all forced out of the hunting path slope. Even Jiang Qin was not spared. He was the first to be thrown out of the hunting path slope. Even the hunting path slope can't stand this kind of behavior. The restriction here has been triggered. The hunting path slope can't be entered. This guy is too ruthless. He dug until the restriction of the hunting path slope is activated. The group of people stood outside the hunting path slope, their faces incomparably ugly. Jiang Qin also had an embarrassed look at that time. He did not expect to be expelled from the hunting path slope. What are you standing there for? Run! After a few breaths, Jiang Qin reacted. After shouting at Zhang Lu and the rest, he broke into a run. Retreat! Even heroes have a time to retreat. Today, Wakako the Tyrant will take a step first. Wakako and the rest did not dare to stay. After shouting a few times, they broke into a run. After all, their group had now become the target of everyone. If they did not run, when the group of people joined forces, Jiang Qin's undead army would not be able to withstand it. Moreover, the commotion at the hunting path slope was too big. There were already powerhouses flying over from afar. If Jiang Qin and the rest did not leave, they would definitely be surrounded, or even die. Chapter 305. Chase after them. They have so many Dao seeds, and they still want to run. Take advantage of the fact that they have not merged with the Dao seeds and snatch them. The group of people went berserk. How could they remain calm? All of them held their breaths and rushed towards Jiang Qin and his group. Let's split up. Jiang Qin saw that the situation was not right. After distributing the Dao seeds to Bai Fengyu and the rest, the group split up and flew in different directions. However, what made Jiang Qin speechless was that the group of people behind him did not chase after Bai Fengyu and the rest. Instead, they were all chasing after him. Looking behind him, there were close to 100 people. All of them were boiling with blood qi and surging spiritual energy as they chased after him. What are you chasing after? I don't have a single Dao seed on me. Jiang Qin's face darkened. No matter how strong he was, facing so many elites at once, he would most likely die. Chase after you. Kid, I'm chasing after you. The The group of people were furious. If not for Jiang Chun, the hunting path slope would not have closed. Jiang Chun smiled bitterly and ran forward without looking back. Along the way, some people saw this scene and could not help but feel curious and followed him. As such, after half an hour, the number of people chasing after Jiang Chun had reached more than 150. Among them, more than 60 people chased after him out of curiosity. When they found out that Jiang Chun had obtained so many Dao seeds, these 60 people also went berserk and chased after him with all their might. Hand over the rest of the Dao seeds. You can't run away. The wilderness god training ground is only so big. Where can you run to? Behind him, some people were roaring angrily. There were even some people who felt aggrieved and kept roaring. I'm not running anymore. Jiang Chun was also furious. After being chased by a group of people for so long, his heart was also flustered. The next moment, Jiang Chun stopped and stood on the spot. He even opened his arms and said, "Come on, kill me. Kill you. The Dao seeds are ours." A group of people rushed in front of Jiang Chun, roaring furiously. Their attacks were like a violent storm, instantly drowning Jiang Chun. However, Jiang Chun's body suddenly turned into a cloud of green smoke and dissipated along with it. A clone? Camouflage? F***CK. Where is he? For a moment, the group of people was dumbfounded. They looked around, but Jiang Chun's figure was nowhere to be seen. At the same time, 100 miles away from this group of people, Jiang Chun swaggered out after changing his appearance. He didn't fuse with the Dao seeds because these Dao seeds didn't mean much to him. Jiang Chun had already cultivated the 6 directions art, so his Dao seed could be cultivated to the 18th level. For Jiang Chun, the 18th level was more or less the same. If he continued to raise the level of his Dao seed, it was very likely that there would be a huge problem. After all, there was a limit to everything. If it exceeded the limit, it would lead to all kinds of ominous things. However, Jiang Chun was also itching to try and see what kind of ominous things would happen if his Dao seed exceeded the 18th level. "Kid, did you see an upper-level Exalted Realm cultivator pass by here?" After a dozen breaths, the group that was chasing Jiang Chun arrived at this place. Some people even questioned Jiang Chun, who had changed his appearance. "I'm also an upper-level Exalted Realm cultivator." Jiang Chun's face was filled with panic. "Don't tell me you're looking for me? I didn't provoke you. We're looking for a kid from the Barren State. What does it have to do with you? Hurry up and tell us, did you see him or not?" A few people shouted angrily. Jiang Chun shook his head and said, "I really didn't see him. I'm just a small upper-level Exalted Realm cultivator. I only entered the Desolate God Palace through connections. I'm here to see the world. How could I?" Without waiting for Jiang Chun to finish speaking, the group of people did not even turn their heads. They directly passed by Jiang Chun and chased forward. Jiang Chun watched the group of people leave, secretly laughing in his heart. Unless a saint opened his heavenly eye, this group of people would not be able to see through his disguise technique. However, not long after that group of people left, they rushed back. This time, these people's target was clear. They were going straight for Jiang Chun, who had changed his appearance. "Stinking brat, you changed your appearance. I was wondering why it was such a coincidence to meet someone who was also an upper-level Exalted Realm cultivator on the way." The group of people were furious, and their eyes were burning with flames. Jiang Chun was surprised. How did this group of people see through his disguise technique? "You changed your appearance, but you didn't change your clothes. Do you think we're stupid?" When Jiang Chun heard that, he could not help but laugh bitterly. This was truly an oversight in 100 plans. He actually forgot to change his clothes. Everyone. At this moment, Jiang Chun was encircled. Barriers, tactical formations, and restrictions appeared around him one after another. It was like a cage. Jiang Chun had nowhere to run. However, Jiang Chun was not worried about his safety at all. He knew that these people only wanted the Taoist seeds. "I'll give them all to you. Take them." At this moment, Jiang Chun waved his hand. The remaining 13 Taoist seeds on him flew in all directions like meteors. Taoist seeds, these are mine. In an instant, the group of people rushed towards the 13 Taoist seeds. No one cared about Jiang Chen at all. After all, compared to the Taoist seeds, Jiang Chen's life was somewhat insignificant. It's just a few Taoist seeds. Jiang Chen pursed his lips. As he watched the crowd leave, he slowly removed the arrays and restrictions around him and then left quietly. On the way, he changed his appearance again and changed his clothes. Half an hour later, Jiang Chen returned to the outside of the hunting slope. As far as the eye could see, around the hunting path slope, restrictions and formations rose up, as if to protect themselves, keeping all living creatures outside. However, the arrays and restrictions were nothing to Jiang Chen. He stood outside the hunting slope. After carefully inspecting it, he began to take action. He kept forming seals with both hands. The array patterns and restrictions and talismans floated in front of him like spiritual snakes and stars. After a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen opened a gap in the arrays and restrictions that enveloped the hunting slope. After that, Jiang Chen stepped into the hunting slope again. This time, Jiang Chen moved extremely quickly. He summoned the Emperor's vines and smashed them fiercely at a few deep pits. At the same time, his body was surrounded by black and white radiance. He held the black and white shoulders in his hands and bombarded the other deep pits wildly. Light and darkness danced in the sky, thousands of trees and thousands of hands, like a violent storm. Scram! Half an hour later, when Jiang Chen was carrying more than 60 Taoist seeds and had dug 18 deep pits, a shocking roar came from below the hunting slope. Then, an old man with white hair and a white beard rose from the ground. When the word scram came out, Jiang Chen already felt that something was wrong. However, he didn't have time to react. He saw the old man's palm strike Jiang Chen's body. Poof! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Jiang Chen flew out like a kite with a broken string and was blasted out of the hunting slope. Chapter 306. This is the territory of the Desolation God. You can't be so presumptuous. The elder roared. Are you trying to destroy the hunting slope? Yeah, I'm just... Jiang Chen rubbed his chest. It wasn't a big deal, but he felt so embarrassed that he couldn't say anything. When others came to the hunting slope, they would wait patiently for the Tao seed to appear before snatching it. Jiang Chen, on the other hand, started digging the Tao seed. If there's a next time, I'll suppress you, the elder rebuked. Senior, may I ask who you are? Jiang Chen asked shamelessly. He chuckled. I'm not digging anymore. There aren't many pits left anyway. I'm the mountain god of this place. I'm a living being nurtured by the Desolation God to protect this place. The elder said, Get lost. Don't let me see you again. Okay. I'll leave. Jiang Chen was very obedient. He shrunk his neck and ran away immediately. After all, he was a living being nurtured by the Desolation God. He had lived for a long time, and his strength had probably broken through the secular world. Jiang Chen would only die if he went against this living being. Moreover, Jiang Chen had almost finished digging all the pits in the hunting slope. It was time for him to leave. Something big happened. The Barren State's upper honorable realm guy dug the hunting slope until it was sealed. Don't mention it. I heard that a large group of geniuses went after him, but he still escaped. I've asked around. That guy's name is Jiang Chen. He's very famous in the Barren State. The Martial Pavilion spent a lot of effort for him, but they couldn't kill him. In the Desolation God Square, some of the deeds of Jiang Chen gradually spread. Some people even said that they would fight Jiang Chen at the same level and suppress him under their feet. Jiang Chen didn't know about this. After he left the hunting slope, he came to a canyon. After setting up formations and restrictions, he began to cultivate. To be precise, he wasn't cultivating. He was planning to merge with the Tao seed. Jiang Chen was very curious. He wanted to see what would happen if the Tao seed surpassed the 18th stage. At the same time, Jiang Chen knew very well that if he didn't increase his strength, he would most likely be in trouble if he encountered the strongest heaven's favorites. As for increasing one's strength, it was not something that could be done overnight. Furthermore, this desolate god Dao field could not attract a heavenly tribulation. If he could not attract the heavenly tribulation, he would not be able to temper his soul, and he would not be able to cultivate the sixth direction art. As such, the only way to increase his strength was to fuse with the Dao seed. I've already walked the path. How would I know if there's no path before me if I haven't tried? Jiang Chen muttered. Then he fused all the Dao seeds in his arms into his body. Whoa! In an instant, a gust of wind howled around Jiang Chen. An extremely violent Taoist rhymes exploded. In the sky, an auspicious cloud appeared. Auspicious and rainbow light descended and poured into Jiang Chen's body. Following a series of explosions, Jiang Chen's Dao seed underwent a drastic change and metamorphosis. During this process, Jiang Chen did not feel any discomfort. He only felt that his strength was constantly increasing. As for his Dao seed, it was constantly increasing in rank. Half a day later, when all the Dao seeds had been fused, Jiang Chen's Dao seed had reached the 57th rank. Nothing ominous happened. Jiang Chen looked around. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened. However, just as he finished speaking, a cloud of black fog suddenly appeared in front of him. The black fog rose, and an indescribable aura filled the air. Following that, a pale eye appeared in the black fog. It seemed to be able to see through the past and present and gain insight. The eye stared at Jiang Chen, and the black fog tumbled. At the same time, Jiang Chen's body was imprisoned. What is this? Jiang Chen was shocked and secretly used a forbidden technique. However, he was shocked to discover that under the gaze of the eye, all his techniques could not be used. A transcendent. You will be included in the purge list. After a few breaths, an emotionless voice came from the black fog. Then, the black fog disappeared along with the pale, white eye. At that moment, Jiang Chen was covered in cold sweat. His heart was still beating fast, and he was even more confused about the black fog and the eye. A transcendent? Included in the purge list? What does that mean? Jiang Chen thought to himself. What is going on? Could this be the ominous event that occurred when one surpassed the limit? Then, what did this ominous event mean? Was there someone behind all this? Or was there such a rule and order? Something big happened in the sword vault. The 8th prince and Huang Jiuchong fought in the sword vault. After they were both seriously injured, a genius from the barren state took advantage of the situation. The 8th prince was killed, and Huang Jiuchong is missing. 3 days later, Jiang Chen came out of the valley and heard the news. Huang Jiuchong? Jiang Chen frowned. Although there was some enmity between him and Huang Jiuchong, Jiang Chen respected Huang Jiuchong as a true man and a hero. However, in Jiang Chen's opinion, among the geniuses who had entered the desolate god's training ground, there should not be many who could kill Huang Jiuchong in the same cultivation level. Also, who was the person who killed the 8th prince? The 8th prince was from the Zhong-Zhou dynasty. Would the Zhong-Zhou dynasty let the matter rest after killing him? At that time, the Zhong-Zhou dynasty would be enraged, and their army would march into the barren state. With the barren state's strength, would they be able to withstand the wrath of the Zhong-Zhou dynasty? The sword vault has been awakened. After another day, Jiang Chen heard another piece of news. The sword vault's door had been opened, and all the weapons inside had been awakened. However, those weapons could not be taken by force. Those weapons had spirituality, and they would choose their own masters. Now a large group of geniuses had rushed over to get a spiritual weapon. What was a spiritual weapon? It was a weapon that had its own consciousness and a weapon spirit. This kind of weapon was a divine item that could continuously evolve. Now, all the divine weapons in the world had evolved from spiritual weapons. Possessing a spiritual weapon was equivalent to possessing a divine weapon. It's time to find a suitable weapon, Jiang Chen thought. After transmitting his voice to Bai Fengyu and the others, he took the lead and headed to the sword vault. The sword vault was not very far from the hunting slope. It was only 3,000 miles away. Jiang Chen only used half an hour to arrive outside the sword vault. At that moment, there were people everywhere. However, most of them were standing outside the sword vault and watching. There were also people who had entered the sword vault, but they could not move an inch. Of course, there were also a few people who walked on foot in the sword vault, walking past the weapons that were inserted into the ground. There's military chi in the sword vault. Those who are not strong enough will not be able to move an inch after entering the sword vault. They might even be injured by the military chi. There were a few people who were directly killed by the military chi. There were loud discussions all around. Some were fearful, and some were eager to give it a try. At the same time, Jiang Chen realized that many people's gazes had landed on a white-robed youth in the sword vault. This youth walked freely in the sword vault, amidst the military chi, as if he was walking on flat ground. Chapter 307. One of the black and white dual swords. White Sword Lu Zai, the successor disciple of the Northern States' Heavenly Sword sect. Legend has it that his swordsmanship is unrivaled among his peers. Only the equally famous Black Sword, Xiao Wanyu, can match him. Listening to the voices around him, Jiang Chen became a little interested in Lu Zai. This was because he could see that Lu Zai was not only a sword master, but also an archery master. Dual professions, outstanding swordsmanship, unknown archery skills. Since Jiang Chen's rebirth, he had seen several archers, but they were all mediocre. He hadn't seen any outstanding archers. A truly powerful archery master, like a dark master, would never appear in front of others. An archery master could kill an enemy with a single arrow and take the enemy's head from 1,000 miles away. They could even pierce through the void with a single arrow. However, it was unknown whether it was because archery masters had declined or because Jiang Chen had seen too few of them, but all the archery masters he had seen were, without exception, weak. There were even some archery masters who dared to fight a martial master head-on. This was purely the kind of people who were not very smart. As for this Lu Zai in front of him, Jiang Chen could feel two intents from him. Firstly, sword intent. Secondly, arrow intent. Longbow? How is this possible? Lu Zai is a sword master. Why would he choose a longbow? At this moment, the surrounding people exclaimed. This was because when Lu Zai passed by a longbow, the longbow suddenly burst out with rays of multicolored light, and an artifact spirit appeared and entered Lu Zai's body. The spiritual weapon chose its master. He is indeed an archery master, Jiang Chen whispered. He was not surprised by this result. However, the next scene moved Jiang Chen. After the spiritual weapon longbow recognized its master, dozens of sword beams suddenly burst out from the surroundings. Following that, dozens of spiritual swords flew into the air, the artifact spirits rioting and rushing towards Lu Zai. The spiritual weapon has recognized its master? Can this still be considered a master? This is robbery. The group of people were dumbfounded. Lu Zai was too popular. So many spirit swords wanted to recognize Lu Zai as their master. I only want the strongest one, Lu Zai whispered. As he blinked, a sword light appeared, as if it would pierce through the heavens. After hearing this, the artifact spirits that had rushed over all retreated back into the spirit swords. The surrounding sword light dissipated, and everything returned to normal. Then, Lu Zai walked towards a 7-foot-long sword in the center. The sword was pitch black and covered in silver-white runes. It was simple and unadorned, but there was a unique charm to it. Since this sword was able to stand towering at the center of the sword tomb, it was sufficient to show that this sword was extraordinary. However, when Lu Zai walked in front of the black sword, the sword did not move at all. It did not even flicker with a ray of light. You don't approve? Oh my God! What was with this black sword? Even Lu Zai couldn't make him submit. Everyone exclaimed, thinking that the sword would choose Lu Zai. Even Lu Zai thought the same. However, this king of swords obviously didn't want to acknowledge Lu Zai. Mu Xingyun. At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed as he saw an old acquaintance. This person was Mu Xingyun, who possessed the shadow Dao spirit. Mu Xingyun also saw Jiang Chen, but he did not recognize him. After all, Jiang Chen had disguised himself. At this moment, he stepped into the sword tomb. Despite the military aura, it was as if he was walking on flat ground. He walked forward step by step and arrived in front of the black sword. However, the black sword still did not move at all and did not flash with a trace of light. Why would a dark master like me need a sword? Mu Xingyun mocked himself. He looked around and whispered, "Do you have a dagger?" "Chi! Chi!" Just as he finished speaking, 2 daggers, one green and one red, flew towards Mu Xingyun like lightning snakes. The 2 daggers rotated together like a snake's tail. Spring thunder, winter snow. At this moment, someone screamed and rubbed his eyes as if he could not believe what he was seeing. When the people around heard the words spring thunder and winter snow, their eyes widened. Even Jiang Chen was moved. He lowered his eyes, and a trace of killing intent flashed across his eyes. Spring thunder, winter snow. These 2 daggers are the kings of spiritual weapons, the kings of daggers. However, they have disappeared for many eras. I did not expect them to be here. Spring thunder, winter snow. Whoever obtains one can become the king of assassins. If he obtains the other, he can conquer the world. At this moment, Mu Xingyun kept the spring thunder and winter snow with a smile on his face. Then he seemed to have sensed something and looked at Jiang Chen, who was in disguise. Jiang Chen was expressionless and hid it well. However, Jiang Chen's heart was stirred by this. Mu Xingyun possessed the shadow Dao spirit, and now he had obtained the 2 kings of daggers, spring thunder and winter snow. As a result, Mu Xingyun's strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. In fact, Jiang Chen had a feeling that if he fought with Mu Xingyun now, the outcome would not be decided. Born to be the king of assassins, Jiang Chen sighed. It was indeed a headache to make an enemy of such a person. "If you don't want to go with him, why don't you come with me?" At that moment, a black-clothed youth rushed into the sword tomb with large strides and arrived in front of the black longsword. Black sword, Xiao Wanyu. Indeed, wherever white sword and Lu Zai appear, black sword and Xiao Wanyu will appear as well. The 2 of them are natural enemies like old enemies. Everyone sighed and knew some things between Xiao Wanyu and Lu Zai. The 2 of them had been fighting ever since they started cultivating. There were even a few times when both of them were injured and almost died. "If it doesn't choose me, it naturally won't choose you," Lu Zai said coldly. "Why are you following me? The soldier's mound has awakened, and the spirit weapon has chosen its master. Why can't I come?" Xiao Wanyu raised his eyebrows. "Why? Do you want to fight? You can try." Lu Zai narrowed his eyes, and a 7-foot-long green sword appeared in his hand. However, before the 2 of them could fight, a little girl who was only 7 or 8 years old rushed into the sword tomb with an excited expression. "Whose child is this? Such a young cultivator has entered the wilderness god's training ground? How did she get in?" For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Even Jiang Chen was dumbfounded. A 7 or 8-year-old girl's cultivation had reached the upper level of the heaven realm. This was a true monster, right? Mine, all mine." At this moment, the little girl shouted in a childish voice after entering the soldier's mound. At the same time, Dao weapon spirits appeared and rushed in front of the little girl. Among them, there were sharp swords, long sabers, long whips, and even bows and arrows. In fact, there were even some strange spirit artifacts. 18 spirit weapons. Where did this little brat come from? How did she get the approval of 18 spirit weapons? Everyone exclaimed as they stared at the little girl. Even Lu Zai, Mu Xingyun, and Xiao Wanyu were stunned. However, unexpectedly, the little girl did not want these spirit weapons. A pure smile hung on her delicate face as she ran over to a small mound of dirt. "I can sense you." Then, she squatted down, threw away the soil, and took out a weapon that looked like a crescent moon. Chapter 308. What is this? A crescent moon? There seems to be a picture of a woman on it. Many people were puzzled. They had never seen such a spiritual weapon before. Not to mention its unique appearance. Just the picture of a woman on it was enough to make people puzzled. Who would carve a picture of a woman on a weapon? What was the use of it? Weapons were meant to be used to kill enemies, not to be used for appreciation. Belle under the moonlight. At this moment, Jiang Chen's heart throbbed. This was because he recognized this spiritual weapon. It was called Belle under the moonlight. The previous owner of this weapon was Yu Yi Lu. It was the weapon of Yu Yi Lu of the Nine Heavens. Back then, when Jiang Chen fell, Yu Yi Lu burned her own soul to ignite the ever-changing heavenly lamp for Jiang Chen. After that, Yu Yi Lu fell. Now, Yu Yi Lu did not appear, but her weapon appeared in the godless continent. What was hidden in this? Buzz. At the same time, the spiritual weapon Belle under the moonlight emitted a ray of moonlight, and a deity-like spirit rushed into the little girl's body. The spiritual weapon chose its owner. Impossible! At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed, and his heart was filled with disbelief. This was because Belle under the moonlight was a weapon used by the moon god. Even if it chose a master, it would not choose a mortal, at least a god. But now, Belle under the moonlight chose a little girl as its master. What was the reason? Could it be? All of a sudden, something occurred to Jiang Chen. He thought of something. Perhaps Yu Yi Lu was also reborn. Belle under the moonlight was born in the godless continent and chose a little girl as its master. Jiang Chen felt that he needed to find out the reason behind this. The most beloved granddaughter of the Jiang family's ancestor, Jiang Yueli. I heard that when Jiang Yueli was born, moonlight and divine light fell from the sky, and a blurry shadow appeared above the Jiang family's ancestral house. She is a woman born with the glory of God. She started cultivating at the age of 3, entered the Tao at the age of 5, became a venerable at the age of 7, and now she is only 9 years old, but her cultivation has already reached the upper level of the heaven realm. She is a genius, a real monster. At that moment, the surrounding people cried out in alarm. They had finally recognized the little girl's identity. At the same time, some people cried out in alarm, and some people's eyes flashed with killing intent. It was true that he was a monster. However, the cultivators of the world were like carp struggling to cross the river. The former lived while the latter died. Everyone was fighting. Everyone wanted to reach the top. And to reach the top, one had to step over the corpses of others, one step at a time. Therefore, nobody wanted to meet a heaven's favorite. Everyone wanted to be invincible. In that case, what should he do now that he had encountered a true monster? Naturally, it was to nip it in the bud. She had cultivated to the upper level of the heaven realm at the age of 9. If she was given more time to grow up, wouldn't Jiang Yueli have the final say in this world? By then, the Jiang family would be the second martial pavilion. As for the people of the same generation, they would be suppressed to the point of being unable to raise their heads. Born with the moonlight and divine light? Don't tell me, it's really you? Jiang Chen's heart pounded as he stepped into the sword catacomb. He wanted to get close to Jiang Yueli and investigate her. Upper venerable realm? How could such a person enter the sword catacomb? He's Jiang Chen. Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm, followed by waves of angry curses. When Jiang Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He thought to himself that after disguising himself this time, he even changed his clothes. How did these people see through it? I've already asked. Among the people who entered the desolate god training grounds from the 7 continents, only one person's cultivation is at the upper level of the venerable realm. And that person is you, Jiang Chen. Don't think that we can't find you just because you changed your appearance. 700 people. Only you are at the upper level of the venerable realm. The person who had chased after Jiang Chen shouted angrily, his eyes filled with killing intent. Jiang Chen was speechless. He didn't expect that he wouldn't even be able to disguise himself this time. After all, he was the only venerable realm cultivator in the entire desolate god training grounds This was really embarrassing. Don't come out if you have the guts. If you dare to take a step out of the sword catacomb, I will take your dog life. You even dug the hunting slope to the point of sealing it. You're really something. In the face of everyone's angry shouts and curses, Jiang Chen only picked his ears and didn't take it to heart. He walked in front of Jiang Yueli, slowly squatted down, stared at her, and asked, "When you were born, moonlight and divine light fell from the sky, and there was even a shadow that appeared." "Yes, a lot of people know." Jiang Yueli blinked her pure eyes. Her eyelashes were curved, pure and cute. "Then, do you know the name of the spiritual weapon in your hand?" Jiang Chen asked again. "I know. It's called Beauty Under the Moonlight." Jiang Yueli nodded. Then, as if guarding against a thief, she tightly hugged Beauty Under the Moonlight in her arms and said, "What are you doing? Are you trying to steal my spiritual weapon?" "Not stealing." Jiang Chen smiled. His voice was calm, but there was a trace of sparkling in his eyes. "In this life, we meet again," Jiang Chen thought in his heart. At this moment, he was sure that Jiang Yueli was the reincarnation of Yu Yi Lu. But in order to be sure, Jiang Chen asked again, "How do you know that this spiritual weapon is called Beauty Under the Moonlight?" "I'm not sure about this, but I know." Jiang Yueli frowned and tilted her head. "It seems like this spiritual weapon was originally mine. I don't know, it's just a feeling. And it was originally yours." Jiang Chen said softly, "It's good to see you again." "Jiang Chen, long time no see." At this moment, Mu Xingyun said with a smile, holding the spring lightning and winter snow in his hands, his eyes flashing with killing intent. "In it today?" Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and stared at Mu Xingyun, the power of heaven and earth erupting from his body. His entire body looked like it was made of gold, and even his hair shone like golden silk. "Fine, let's settle this today," said Mu Xingyun softly. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly vanished. Chi! When he appeared again, he had already landed beside Jiang Chen. The spring lightning and winter snow in his hands were like poisonous snakes, heading straight for Jiang Chen's forehead and chest. Jiang Chen did not dare to be careless, and used the 9 words of battle. At the same time, his left hand gathered sunlight, and his right hand gathered moonlight, and pushed out with both palms. But what Jiang Chen did not expect was that the 2 daggers that had landed in front of him suddenly turned around and stabbed towards Jiang Yueli. Ah! Jiang Yueli was stunned. After all, she was young and inexperienced and did not have enough battle experience, so she was scared silly on the spot. She stood there stupidly, not knowing how to react. "You're courting death." Jiang Chen saw this, and his heart was filled with anger. But at this moment, Jiang Chen was too late to block the 2 daggers. At that critical moment, Jiang Chen turned around and hugged Jiang Yueli, exposing his back to Mu Xingyun. "Ha!" Mu Xingyun laughed coldly, and the spring lightning and winter snow stabbed Jiang Chen's back dantian and the back of his head without hesitation. Chapter 309. Boom! Instantly, 2 explosions were heard. Jiang Chen's dantian was penetrated and blood spurted out. Fortunately, the Emperor's vines appeared on the back of his head and weaved into a net to block the spring lightning. Even so, part of the spring lightning's power broke through the Emperor's vine's defense and hit the back of Jiang Chen's head. For a moment, Jiang Chen lost consciousness and darkness filled his vision. His glabella was cracked. If the immortal bird Dao Soul hadn't appeared in time and protected his origin with its indestructible power, Jiang Chen would have been a corpse by now. "You're not dead?" Mu Xingyun was surprised, but he didn't stop. The spring lightning stabbed toward the back of Jiang Chen's head again. This time, the spring lightning shone with a dark light and seemed to be able to melt it. "You can kill me, but how dare you attack her?" Jiang Chen pushed Jiang Yueli away, turned around abruptly, and punched the spring thunder. Boom! Accompanied by an explosion, the spring thunder was distorted. Even Mu Xingyun's arm emitted the sound of bones breaking. The 2 of them are fighting in the sword catacomb. The sword catacomb is filled with the military chi. Ordinary people can't move in there, but the two of them still have the strength to fight. Jiang Chun is only at the upper level of the honorable realm. How can he be so powerful? It's too terrifying. Outside the sword catacomb, the crowd exclaimed. They couldn't believe that a cultivator at the upper level of the honorable realm could be so powerful. At the same time, Jiang Chen's body shone brightly. The emperor's vines burst out like thousands of arms and rushed toward Mu Xingyun. The immortal bird Dao Soul burst out from his back with a pair of flaming wings. As it flapped its wings, heat waves swept out and a long cry was heard. Your life will be mine sooner or later. Mu Xingyun chuckled. Then his figure dimmed and disappeared. Jiang Chen's eyes were bloodshot and blood dripped from his forehead. In his mind, a violent energy was rampaging. What a troublesome thing, Jiang Chun thought to himself. Once again, Mu Xingyun managed to escape. This made him feel extremely aggrieved. Jiang Chun had always wanted to kill Mu Xingyun since the solitary North City. However, every time, Mu Xingyun would use the Shadow Dao spirit to escape. It was the same this time. After Mu Xingyun's attack failed, he used his Shadow Dao spirit to leave this place. Kill! Kill them both! Suddenly, a few angry shouts came from the crowd. Then, the 6 young men joined forces and rushed into the soldiers' mound. At the same time, Lu Zai and Xiao Wanyu joined forces to attack Jiang Yueli. As the saying goes, monstrous geniuses must be killed in the cradle. Only by killing them would he have one less stumbling block on his path in the future. You won't even let her go. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. In a flash, he stood beside Jiang Yueli. Why should we let her go? Lu Zai raised his eyebrows and said, she's already at the upper level of the heaven realm at the age of 9. If we wait for her to grow up, will we still have a share in this world? A person is born in 1,000 years, and a deity is born in 1,000 years. Xiao Wanyu said in a low voice, in 1,000 years, only one person can become a deity. We are all people who strive to become deities. On the road to becoming a deity, we can only kill and move forward by stepping on the bones of others. How can we let a competitor grow up? The other people rushed over. 8 people surrounded Jiang Chun and Jiang Yueli in the sword mound. Little brother, I'm afraid. Jiang Yueli was young after all. Usually, she was protected by the strong people of her family. She had never seen such a scene. Her eyes were red and her mouth was pursed. She looked wronged and helpless. I won't let you get hurt again. A cold light flashed in Jiang Chen's eyes. There was a cluster of flames burning in his body. This time, Jiang Chun would rather expose the myriad transformation heavenly lamp in front of everyone than let Jiang Yueli get hurt again. This was because Jiang Yueli was Yu Yi Lu's body. Jiang Yueli was Yu Yi Lu. Let's see who dares. Touch my boss. Have you asked for my permission? At this moment, Wakako and the others arrived. They rushed into the sword mound and rushed to Jiang Chen's side. Kill as many as you come. Today, don't even think about leaving alive. Lu Zai and the others shouted angrily. Killing intent surged in their eyes. Buzz! The moment they finished speaking, 2 people charged towards Jiang Chun. The other person went straight for Jiang Yueli. The others fought fiercely with Wakako, Xiao Qingyi, and the others. And those who were able to fight in the sword tomb were all extraordinary people. Their combat strength was extremely strong, especially Lu Zai and Xiao Wanyu. With a sword in each hand, sword flowers bloomed. I'll kill you! Jiang Chun was furious. He protected Jiang Yueli with one hand and waved his other hand. Rays of fist light shot out. However, because he had to protect Jiang Yueli and face the attacks of many people, several bloody marks appeared on Jiang Chen's body in just a few seconds. Even his glabella was almost cut open by Lu Zai's sword. Little brother, Jiang Yueli's eyes were red. She hugged one of Jiang Chen's arms and said, Can we leave this place? Yes, Jiang Chun said seriously. Even if I die, I'll take you away safely. Boss, someone else is here. F***CK. It's the seventh prince of Zhou dynasty. The lone arm of Sword Gate Pass. After a few seconds, a few youths with extremely powerful auras arrived outside the sword mound. After these people arrived, they did not say a word and directly charged towards Jiang Chun and the others. Everyone likes to kill geniuses. If these people are not killed, they will have the final say in this world in the future. Many people sighed, but their eyes were cold. What did the life and death of others have to do with them? They were just spectators. Since they were spectators, they would just watch. After a few seconds, Jiang Chun blocked a ray of sword light with a punch, but his body was slashed 3 times by Xiao Wangyou's sword. Even if Jiang Chun's physical body was strong, he could not withstand the 3 slashes. Blood spurted out. His abdomen, chest, and neck were 3 eye-catching wounds that were so deep that bones could be seen. In an instant, 2 rays of fist light, 3 palm prints, and a ray of flame and lightning bombarded Jiang Chun's body. Jiang Chun did not have to withstand all these attacks. He could move horizontally. However, he had Jiang Yueli by his side now. If he moved horizontally and avoided these attacks, then the one who would be injured would be Jiang Yueli. Boss! Master! At this moment, Bai Fengyu and the others were furious and wanted to rush over to help Jiang Chun. Unfortunately, their opponents were extremely strong. They were entangled and could not break free at all. If they were distracted, they would be suppressed by their opponents. Looks like I have to be serious today, Jiang Chun said softly. For the first time since his rebirth, there was seriousness in his eyes. After all, the previous battles were just small skirmishes to Jiang Chun. He had never been serious. However, it was different today. These people were all geniuses, the top 100 figures in various states. If Jiang Chun did not treat them seriously, he would probably die here today. Chapter 310. Sword come. At this moment, Jiang Chun let out a long roar. He stretched out one hand and opened his 5 fingers. In an instant, rays of sword light shot into the sky from the sword tomb. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the weapon spirits appeared and rushed towards Jiang Chun. They wanted to choose Jiang Chun as their master. However, Jiang Chun did not take these weapon spirits away. He didn't want them. Chi. The sound of something tearing through the air could be heard. The black sword in the center vibrated, and the weapon spirit rushed to Jiang Chun's side along with the sword body. However, Jiang Chun still did not accept it. Sword come. With another long roar, Jiang Chun's 5 fingers closed slightly in the shape of a sword. Boom! In the next moment, the entire sword tomb shook. Somewhere in the sword tomb, there was a stone tablet. This stone tablet shattered at this moment. Following that, a white sword light burst forth, and a snow-white sword flew in front of Jiang Chun. This time, Jiang Chun received the sword. Let me show you what a sword is, Jiang Chun said coldly, and the sword in his hand vibrated with his arm. Following that, Jiang Chun rushed out. Sword shadows followed him, and sword flowers bloomed in the air. A cold light flashed, like a dragon emerging from the sea. It traversed the void and directly slashed one of them. Poof! Immediately, that person was cut in half at the waist, and even his soul was shattered. In the next moment, Jiang Chun turned around and flicked the sword flowers. Sharp sword shadows appeared around him. Sword wheel, reverse. Accompanied by a long howl, the shadow of the sharp sword moved in the opposite direction, like a roulette. Everywhere it passed, sand and stones flew, and sword chi was rampant. In terms of swords, Lu Zai have never lost. Lu Zai narrowed his eyes and pointed the sword in his hand at Jiang Chun. A terrifying sword intent erupted from his body. Following that, Lu Zai's sword slashed out 6 times in a row, each stronger than the last. When it reached the 6th strike, the sword light pierced through like a rainbow. However, when these 6 sword lights encountered the sword wheel that Jiang Chun slashed out, all of them collapsed. Furthermore, The sword wheel's momentum did not diminish as it slammed into Lu Zai's body. Puff! Puff! Under the horrified gazes of the crowd, Lu Zai's body was covered in blood. Hundreds of wounds had been inflicted by the sword chi. If it weren't for his high cultivation and dense protective spiritual energy, this sword wheel would have been enough to take his life. And now, although Lu Zai wasn't dead, he was seriously injured. He didn't continue to fight. After fiercely glaring at Jiang Chun, he turned around and rushed out of the sword tomb. In a few breaths of time, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Whoosh! However, merely 3 breaths of time later, an arrow shot over like a shooting star from 5 kilometers away from the sword vault. Upon closer inspection, it was a blood-red arrow. I know that you're not only a sword master, but also an archer. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed as he shielded Jiang Yueli behind him. The sword in his hand gently moved in the air. In an instant, the air in this part of the world started to distort, and the brilliance of the sword rose up. Then, all of it gathered and turned into a huge sword. The long sword slashed through the air, shattering the arrow. Then, the long sword rushed out, heading straight for 5 kilometers. What? 5 kilometers away? Lu Zai's eyes narrowed. He reacted quickly. When he saw the long sword rushing over, he had already moved to the side. However, what he did not expect was that this long sword contained Jiang Chen's spiritual energy. The spiritual energy exploded and locked onto Lu Zai. The long sword followed Lu Zai's movement. Puff! Finally, with a muffled sound, Lu Zai's chest was pierced. The sword chi exploded in his body, and his entire body exploded. He died. White Sword Lu Zai is dead. Heavens! Is this still the strength of a cultivator in the supreme realm? This is too heaven-defying? The crowd exclaimed in surprise. They couldn't believe that by Jian Lu Zai, who had such a great reputation and great power, had been killed by Jiang Chun with a single sword attack from 3 miles away. Condense! At this moment, someone shouted, and a picture scroll unfolded in front of him. This person was the painter. When the picture scroll unfolded, hundreds of beasts jumped out. Like a tide of beasts, they pounced on Jiang Chun. Blooming sword. All flowers lose. Jiang Chun shouted in a low voice. He brandished his sword one after another. The radiance of the sword blossomed like flowers. The flowers bloomed and withered. The hundreds of beasts collapsed and turned into spiritual energy that filled the sky, returning to nothingness. Then, Jiang Chen's figure disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already behind the painter. He raised the long sword in his hand high. With his spiritual energy as a guide, a talisman was formed and fused with the long sword. Bestowal liberation. In the next moment, Jiang Chun said softly. The long sword fell and directly cut through the painter's armor and protective spiritual energy. In the end, the sword bloomed and the painter died. Puff! However, at this moment, a black snake-like sword light charged over. It was so fast that Jiang Chun could not react in time. With a dull sound, Jiang Chun felt a sharp pain in his dantian. When he looked down, he saw that a black long sword had already pierced through his dantian. You can kill Lu Zai, but you're going to die in my hands. Xiao Wanyu said contemptuously. You're just an ant at the upper level of the exalted state. How can you fight against me? If I'm an ant, what are you? The power of heaven and earth in Jiang Chen's body exploded and shook the black long sword out of his dantian. Then, while Xiao Wanyu was still in shock, Jiang Chen weaved Madra in the air with his sword as a guide. Then a sealing rune flew over like a shooting star and hit Xiao Wanyu in the blink of an eye. Buzz! With a few vibrations, Xiao Wanyu's face turned pale. The spiritual energy in his body was sealed. Impossible! Your dantian is already destroyed. How can you still form talismans with your spiritual energy? Xiao Wanyu said seriously. Who told you that I'm using spiritual energy? And who told you that a destroyed dantian is equivalent to being crippled? Jiang Chun said contemptuously. The long sword in his hand formed sword flowers, and he wanted to kill Xiao Wanyu. However, before he could make a move, an extremely violent aura came from beside him. A burly young man was seen. His entire body was blood red, and even his eyes were blood red. He strode over at an extremely fast speed, like a ferocious beast. A fist came crashing down like a mountain, carrying with it a terrifying might. Upper level of the heavenly state, Kuang Shi, Jiang Chun moved his body and danced in the air. The long sword in his hand seemed to be alive and danced as well. Sword dance of the nine heavens. Before his opponent's punch landed, Jiang Chun rushed into the clouds. After that, a ray of sword light descended like a waterfall and smashed onto Kuang Shi's body. Bang! Kuang Shi did not even touch the corner of Jiang Chun's clothes. He shattered into a cloud of blood and died on the spot. Chapter 3:11. The sword light was as bright as the stars. It fell from the clouds, densely packed, like a rain of swords. The people in the sword tomb retreated when they saw this, not daring to fight head-on. At the same time, Xiao Wanyu retreated and rushed out of the sword tomb, disappearing from everyone's sight in a few breaths. Soon after, quite a few people retreated. Moreover, they were all injured. However, Zhang Lu and the others were not doing well either. They were surrounded and attacked by everyone, and their injuries were very serious. Xiao Qingyi had used up all his spiritual power and was sitting on the ground, sweating profusely. "Boss, what should we do?" Zhang Lu asked in a low voice. He looked at Jiang Chun, who had returned, with worry in his eyes. "Stay here. Don't go out," Jiang Chun said. There was the military qi in the sword tomb, and ordinary prodigies could not withstand it at all. Outside the sword tomb, there was no oppression from the military qi, and those prodigies could attack as they wished. As such, Jiang Chun and the others could only stay in the sword tomb and rely on the military qi to resist those prodigies. "Stay here forever?" Wakako frowned. "That's waiting for death. Do you have any good ideas?" Jiang Chun asked, a hint of helplessness flashing in his eyes. If they rushed out, most of the people outside the sword tomb would definitely attack. Zhang Lu and the others were already injured, and their combat power was not at its peak. Jiang Chun could take care of one or two of them, but he could not protect everyone. If they went out, Jiang Chun might not die, but Zhang Lu and the others would definitely die here. "Hey, if you die, who should I look for revenge?" Suddenly, 6 youths walked over from the crowd outside the sword tomb. The leader was the dragon human prince, Huang Jiuchong. There were 5 other prodigies beside him, and each of them was at the upper heaven realm. One of them was even a quasi-sage. At that moment, Huang Jiuchong looked proud and aloof. When he opened and closed his eyes, even the light that flashed seemed to have a hint of arrogance. "Back then, I lost, but I refused to accept it," Huang Jiuchong said bluntly. "Since then, I've been cultivating diligently, hoping to find a chance to defeat you and regain my dignity." And then, Jiang Chun stood in the soldier's mound and asked, "You can't die." Huang Jiuchong growled, "What about me if you die? You can't die before I defeat you." "But now, I think I'm going to die." Jiang Chun smiled bitterly. "Let's see who dares." Huang Jiuchong's voice turned cold. He glanced around and curled his lips into a disdainful smirk. A bunch of cultivators at the upper level of the heaven realm teaming up against Jiang Chun, a cultivator at the upper level of the martial highness realm? You guys are really shameless. What does Huang Jiuzhong have to do with you? This is not the humanoid dragon clan's territory. There are plenty of people who can deal with you if you act so arrogantly here. Many people in the surroundings rebuked Huang Jiuchong angrily. Many of them couldn't stand Huang Jiuchong's arrogance. However, Huang Jiuchong didn't care what they thought of him. He was arrogant and had a personality. He was arrogant and casual. At that moment, he waved his hand and said to the people around him, "Suppress all those who spoke just now." "Yes. Yes, sir." In an instant, the 5 of them attacked those who had spoken just now. The outside of the sword mound was instantly thrown into chaos. That was because these people attacked ferociously. They didn't care if they would affect others. As a result, many people were displeased. In just a few breaths' time, a chaotic battle broke out outside the sword mound. There were even people who charged at Huang Jiucheng, wanting to kill the humanoid dragon prince. "I'm here on the orders of the ancestor to protect you." After a few breaths' time, a beautiful figure in white appeared while Huang Jiucheng and the others were in a tough battle. Then, a violent and bloodthirsty aura exploded. An Azura with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared, holding 3 swords and 6 sabers. Tian Shui. That woman is the first on the Baron State's Baron ranking, Tian Shui. Someone exclaimed, but Tian Shui didn't care. She transformed into an Azura and went on a rampage. Wherever she passed, some people were killed on the spot. Some had their arms and legs chopped off. She was a woman. She was beautiful and even a little delicate. However, the way she fought and her methods were as cruel and bloody as her Dao soul, Azura. How lively. It's a pity that all of you are going to die today. Suddenly, in the distant sky, a black cloud floated over. On the cloud, a white-haired young man stood in the air. He had a pair of sharp eyebrows, and there was a sharp intent. At the same time, the 7th prince of the Zhou Empire, who had already left the sword mound, saw this person and shouted excitedly, "Sixth brother!" The 6th prince of the Zhou Empire, known as the Black Hand. Among the 8 princes of the Zhou Empire, he is the cruelest and the most decisive one. Everyone exclaimed, and there were even people who retreated. That was because they knew the 6th prince's character. Once he made a move, he wouldn't even recognize his own family. Anyone who was close to him would suffer. Killing geniuses in cradles has always happened since ancient times. The 6th prince stood in the air and said coldly, "Now, we have only killed a few geniuses. Yet, we have caused such a huge commotion." At this point, the 6th prince paused for a moment. A sharp look flashed in his eyes as he looked at the people below. Finally, his gaze landed on the 7th prince. "Are these geniuses too strong, or are you guys too weak? There are so many of you, yet none of you have died. Are you all trash?" Faced with the 6th prince's angry roar, the 7th prince couldn't help but tremble. He lowered his head and didn't dare to make a sound. "Only the heavens can stand above me. No living beings can stand above me. What 6th prince of the Zhou Empire? Get down here!" At that moment, Huang Jiucheng roared angrily and threw a punch at the 6th prince. Huang Jiucheng, the draconian prince, huh? The 6th prince dodged the punch and said disdainfully, "This isn't the draconian tribe's territory. It's your burial ground. Come and try if you dare." Huang Jiucheng's eyes narrowed. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. That was because he knew better than anyone that the 8 princes of the Zhou Empire were each more powerful than the other. Huang Jiucheng's strength was similar to the 8th prince's and was on par with the 7th prince's. Compared to the 6th prince, Huang Jiucheng was obviously weaker. However, since things had developed to this stage, Huang Jiucheng wouldn't choose to retreat. Moreover, he had a quasi-saint genius by his side. That person was strong enough to fight the 6th prince. However, no one had expected a monk in a kasaya to appear before the 6th prince had even made a move. That person had a scar on his face, and the prayer beads hanging around his neck were made of skulls. He held a long saber dripping with blood in his hand, and had a murderous aura around him. "Buddhist traitor, Yuan Cheng. Blood fiend Buddha, Yuan Cheng." Everyone exclaimed. A few of them immediately retreated when they saw Yuan Cheng. That was because Yuan Cheng's reputation was similar to the 6th prince's. He was notorious for killing the innocent. As long as he was unhappy, he would kill. As for who he killed, it was very simple. He would kill whoever he encountered. Chapter 3:12. The 2 murders people had come here together. Their purpose was clear. They were here to kill the prodigies. The people present were all the top 100 prodigies in their respective prefectures. Therefore, when these people saw the sixth prince and Yuan Sheng, their hearts were filled with fear. The granddaughter of the Jiang family, Jiang Yueli. She reached the upper level of the heaven realm at the age of 9. How interesting, Yuan Sheng said softly. His eyes were red. The sixth prince nodded and said, looks like we have the same idea. If we let this kind of person grow, the world will not be ours in the future, Yuan Sheng said softly. As he spoke, he had already rushed into the sword catacomb. His target was clear. It was Jiang Yueli. However, before he could reach her, Tian Shui intercepted him. The two of them immediately engaged in a fierce battle. At the same time, the sixth prince also rushed down. His target was still Jiang Yueli. How dare you? Jiang Qin shouted and protected Jiang Yueli behind him. The snow-white sword in his hand hummed. He was ready to fight to the end. However, at this moment, a young man arrived outside the sword catacomb with a small booklet in his hand. He was not very handsome. He gave people a simple and honest feeling. His speed did not seem fast. In fact, he had intercepted the sixth prince in an instant. Where is it? Why can't I find it? Although the young man had intercepted the sixth prince, his eyes were still on the small booklet. He seemed to be looking for something. 3 breaths of time later, to the confusion of the sixth prince, the young man's eyes suddenly lit up, as if he had found something on the booklet. Cough, cough. Then the young man coughed and said loudly, if you want to pass this place, you must pass my life. Nianchanga? Why is this guy here too? Which prefecture does he belong to? At this moment, Jiang Chun and the rest were stunned. They did not expect Nianchanga, who was in the heavenly temple, to enter the desolate god training ground. This guy was still the same as before. He followed his master's teachings. Wherever he went, he would read the small booklet a few times and say some pretentious words. Get lost, the sixth prince said coldly. Where did this fool come from? Fool? Are you scolding me? Nianchanga raised her eyebrows and said, although I don't quite understand the meaning of fool, I can feel that this word is very unfriendly. You're really stupid. The sixth prince narrowed his eyes and threw out a punch. The punch was like the roar of a real dragon and carried with it a terrifying, murderous aura. Whether or not I'm stupid, what does that have to do with you? Nianchanga spoke softly. His body trembled, and the 36 Tao lotuses appeared behind him. At once, the light around him shone brightly. 7 different colors made him look like a cloud. 36 Tao lotuses? You're the successor of the Skyspan Temple, Nianchanga? At this moment, cries of surprise could be heard all around. Even the sixth prince's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness and fear. Ah, am I so famous? Nianchanga was stunned, but he acted very decisively. With a palm strike, he shattered the sixth prince's fist radiance. However, at this moment, the seventh prince rushed over and attacked Nianchanga together with the sixth prince. You're the only one who has helped? Nianchanga raised his eyebrows and shouted, Wife, we're not married yet. That's not appropriate. A cold voice could be heard not far away. Then, Nianchanga's fiancée, Lu Ruo, flew over. Her silky hair fluttered in the wind. She held a sword in her hand and slashed out a shocking sword radiance. It was like a ray of light, and it went straight for the seventh prince. At the same time, Lu Chong appeared behind Lu Ruo. Black light flashed in his eyes, as if there were a few rings rotating. That was the death god's eye. Brother-in-law, Lu Chong said softly. Then, he rushed over and punched the sixth prince. At the same time, a terrifying mental strength exploded from the death god's eye. It was like an invisible storm that forced the sixth prince to take 3 steps back. Where did all these experts come from? The successor of the Skyspan Temple, Nianchanga. The 2 successors of the secluded temple, Lu Yin and Lu Chong. And the number 1 on the barren list, Tian Shui. The prince of the human dragon, Emperor level 9. In an instant, there were exclamations everywhere. No one could believe that Jiang Chun had attracted so many experts. At the same time, Jiang Lu took a step forward and rushed out of the sword tomb toward the crowd. Wakako followed closely behind. His heavenly tyrant body emitted a purple glow. He opened his fists and closed them like a ferocious tiger coming down from the mountain. Jiang Chun held Jiang Yueli's hand and walked out of the sword tomb. He followed behind Wakako and Zhang Lu and walked out step by step. Bai Fengyu, Zhao Mujio, and Dao Gui guarded Jiang Chun on both sides. Just like that, the group walked out of the sword tomb. Wakako and Zhang Lu led the way and pushed their way out. Don't even think about leaving, Yuan Cheng roared. After he blasted away Tian Shui's attack, the skull beads on his neck scattered and turned into the heads of malicious spirits. They rushed toward Jiang Yueli. Jiang Yueli was scared out of her wits. When she saw the malicious spirits, fear flashed in her eyes. After all, she was still young. I've left India, but in my heart, I'm still a Buddhist. Zhao Mujio said softly. But you've already become a demon. What demon and Buddha? On the path to becoming a god, there's no distinction between good and evil. Yuan Qing shouted and wanted to rush over. However, before he could move, Tian Shui slashed out 3 sabers and 6 swords. The sword gleam and saber gleam drowned Yuan Cheng. Azure Dao soul with 3 heads and 6 arms? Yuan Cheng was shocked and furious. A black glow flickered on his body with a hint of Buddhist light. His body was pitch black. It was different from the Buddhist Zhang 6 golden body. This was the devil's body after becoming a demon, and this devil's body wasn't any weaker than the Zhang 6 golden body. After he resisted the 3 sabers and 6 swords with his body, he leaned forward and rushed forward. Do you think I'm just a decoration? At this moment, Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. He stretched out his arm and slashed out with his snow-white sword. Chi! With a piercing sound, the white sword gleam flashed across the sky like a bright moon. In the next second, everyone saw the sword gleam slashing across the sky. Yuan Cheng's devil's body was broken, and his entire arm was chopped off. This sword, there's something wrong with it. It's even stronger than the black sword in the middle of the sword tomb. This sword gleam seems to carry the aura of God's punishment. Everyone was shocked. With one slash, Yuan Cheng's devil's body was broken. Even Yuan Cheng was dumbfounded. The strength of his devil's body wasn't any weaker than the Zhang 6 golden body. Previously, he could resist Tian Shui's 3 sabers and 6 swords with his devil's body. But now, he couldn't resist Jiang Chen's slash. When we reach the main hall of the Desolate God's Dojo, I'll definitely kill you. Yuan Cheng was injured and his arm was chopped off. His combat power was no longer at its peak. After he said those words, he turned around and left without any hesitation. At the same time, the 6th prince and the 7th prince joined forces, but they couldn't suppress Nian Chang'e. Moreover, the 2 of them were suppressed by Nian Chang'e and fell into a disadvantageous position. Chapter 313. When we reach the main hall, all of you will die. Ants from the barren state still want to compete with us in the Desolate God arena. You are simply courting death. At this moment, the 7th prince and the 6th prince saw that the situation was not good and retreated one after another. However, before they left, just like Yuan Sheng, they left behind ruthless words, and they even mentioned the 2 words main hall. After the people around saw Yuan Sheng and the other 2 retreat, they no longer had the heart to kill Jiang Chun and the others and retreated one after another. After a dozen breaths, only Jiang Chun and the others were left outside the sword tomb. I say, as a boss, you didn't do well. If we hadn't come, would you have died here? At this moment, Nian Chang'e and the others said with a smile. Perhaps, Jiang Chun said softly, also with lingering fear. This time, if Nian Chang'e and the others had not arrived in time, their group would most likely have been in danger. Fortunately, the matter was already over. What are your plans for the future? Nian Chang'e asked. Go to the main hall. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. Some people can't be let go. Who can't be let go? Zhang Lu looked stunned. not knowing what was wrong with Jiangchen today. He actually had the intention to kill. Moreover, it was the kind that would not rest until death. Those who dare to touch her, none of them can be let go, Jiang Chun said coldly, but looked at the young Jiang Yueli gently. Jiang Yueli still looked silly. She had been scared silly before and had not reacted until now. This made Jiang Chun feel a little heartache. Once upon a time, the dignified moon goddess had become like this. Back then, in the nine heavens divine realm, the name of the moon goddess was awe-inspiring, and she was ranked in the top few among the many master gods. And now, after reincarnating, she was almost killed. Dragons had reverse scales, and so did Jiang Chun. And he had many reverse scales, but there was one that no one could touch. And this reverse scale was Jiang Yueli. Although Jiang Yueli no longer remembered who she was, she only thought of herself as a descendant of the Jiang family. However, Jiang Chun believed that one day, Jiang Yueli's memories would be restored and she would remember the past. She's from the Jiang family. What does that have to do with you? Bai Fengyu frowned and said, the people of the Jiang family are not friendly to outsiders. I don't know if it's good or bad to be too close to them. What does the Jiang clan have to do with me? I only want her, Jiang Chun said softly. He did not explain further. Little princess. At this moment, more than 10 youths rushed over from afar. They were all dressed in the same robes, and each of them exuded an extremely powerful aura. These people rushed over to Jiang Chun's side and sized up Jiang Yueli and the others with vigilance. Someone bullied me just now and wanted to kill me. When Jiang Yueli saw these people, she cried out in grievance. She hugged Jiang Chun's arm and said, it was this big brother who saved me. Thank you. The leader nodded lightly. Then, without saying another word, he left with Jiang Yueli. They were all disciples of the Jiang family. They entered the desolate god training ground to protect Jiang Yueli. But who would have thought that Jiang Yueli would sneak out and almost cause a huge mistake? So cold? She just said, thank you, and left. Boss, you risked your life to protect her. But the people of the Jiang family don't seem to appreciate it. Wakako and the others frowned. They were somewhat dissatisfied with the attitude of the Jiang family. After all, if not for Jiang Yueli, they would not have had to fight a bitter battle and almost died. It's fine, Jiang Chun said softly. His expression was indifferent, but his emotions were complicated. He did not know when he would meet Jiang Yueli again. Perhaps they would meet in the main hall. But he did not know when Jiang Yueli's memories would be restored. Could it be that the two of them were going to be strangers in this life? The seal at the main hall is about to disappear. Now, the strongest group of people are at the main hall. Morning Wine said, are we going too? Of course we're going. Jiang Chun said, let's rest first. We'll set off tomorrow. Then, everyone found a secluded place to recuperate. Time passed by slowly, until night time. The stars hung high in the night sky, sprinkling down specks of starlight. The surroundings were silent. Even the sound of insects could not be heard. After a few breaths, a dark cloud condensed in the sky. For a moment, the world dimmed, and one could not see their fingers in front of them. At this moment, Jiang Chun and the others suddenly opened their eyes and looked at a small mountain in the distance. Wakako and the others directly stood up, their eyes flickering. What a strong killing intent. It seems that someone still wants to kill us, Xiao Qingyi and the others whispered. They felt dozens of killing intents from the small mountain opposite them. Moreover, they also felt dozens of quasi-sage auras. Let's go, Jiang Chun said in a deep voice. Facing dozens of quasi-sages, all of them together were not enough to kill them. Boss, so what if they're quasi-sages? We can fight them. Zhang narrowed his eyes. Now that he was the successor of the samurai, he had the strength to contend with quasi-sages. However, Jiang Chun still shook his head and said, let's go quickly. It'll be too late if we don't leave now. Let's go, Nian Chang'e said softly. After saying this, he did not stay and directly retreated. Lu Chong and Liu Bei also left. Then, Bai Fengyu and the others retreated one after another. In the end, only Jiang Chun was left. Of course, it was not that Jiang Chun did not want to leave, but if he left, there would be no one to cover the retreat. If he did not cover the retreat with the strength of a quasi-sage, he could catch up to Bai Fengyu and the others in a few breaths. At that time, none of them would be able to leave. Martial Pavilion's 13 Tombs. Today, I'm here to meet you, Sect Master Quan Zun. I've heard a lot about you. How's the scenery here? If this place becomes your burial ground, you can still enjoy the scenery after death. Wouldn't that be wonderful? After a few breaths, the people on the small mountain moved. The 13 quasi-saints landed in front of Jiang Chun at the same time, as they spoke sarcastically and disdainfully. These 13 people were the strongest of the younger generation of the Martial Pavilion. They were known as the 13 Tombs. Just a quasi-sage, Jiang Chun said softly. Heaven can't take my life, and earth can't bury it. How can a mere quasi-sage give up my life? You still have the courage to say this when you're about to die? Everything will be over after we kill you. The few of them chuckled and did not take Jiang Chun seriously at all. As for Jiang Chun, he did not take these 13 people seriously either. Buzz! At this moment, Jiang Chun made his move. The snow-white sword in his hand swept out, and at the same time, a green lamp appeared between his eyebrows. Inside the green lamp, the light was serene and then gathered on the sword. As the sword slashed out, the sword gleam was like a crescent moon, burning with raging flames, and an obscure aura pervaded the air. 10,000 transformations, heaven slash. With a loud shout, the sword gleam drowned the 13 people. In the dark night, a glaring radiance erupted. Subsequently, everything returned to normal. The 13 tombs of the Martial Pavilion did not even have the chance to attack before they all died under the 10,000 transformations heaven slash. Chapter 314. After that strike, Jiang Chun felt weak all over. He cast an earth elemental spell and burrowed into the ground. Then his vision turned black and he fainted. After all, he had been injured by Mu Xingyun previously and had yet to recover. Now that he had used the 1,000 transformations heaven slash, he suffered a backlash. Injuries on top of injuries. No matter how strong Jiang Chun was, he could not hold on at this moment. It was quiet. His heart was quiet. However, the deepest part of Jiang Chun's soul wasn't quiet, even though he had fainted. That was because in the depths of his soul, there were not only 3 Tao spirits, but also 2 figures. One was Buddha. Buddha's light shone brightly, benevolent, and surrounded by Buddha's light. The other was demon. Demonic chi surged, ferocious, and evil spirits haunted him. The 2 silhouettes were drifting in and out of place, as if they were illusory, but also as if they were real. And Jiang Chun could clearly feel that the 2 figures were his true body. That was his heart. Abyssal, Jiang Chun muttered. Only then did he recall that he had once obtained a cultivation technique. Abyssal. There were 6 volumes to Abyssal. Jiang Chun had obtained the first 3 volumes. And the first volume was to cultivate the heart. Now he had been cultivating Abyssal for a long time. Jiang Chun had never felt any changes after cultivating Abyssal. But now, Jiang Chun knew that the changes after cultivating Abyssal were about to begin. That was his heart. It was giving him a choice. Buddhists are benevolent. Fiends are benevolent. At that moment, an ethereal voice came from the 2 figures. It seemed to be explaining something about Buddhism and Fiend Tao. Jiang Chun did not make a choice immediately. Instead, he listened quietly. Buddhists deliver all living beings from torment. All living beings are equal. Equality is Buddha. The figure that was filled with Buddha's light said, "Those who become Buddhists will achieve great harmony in the world. Fiends do as they please." The figure that was surging with demonic chi said. He did not say much and only said that. As for Jiang Chun, he already had an answer in his heart. There is no such thing as equality in the world. True equality is achieved by fighting with both hands. Jiangchen said, I want to become a Buddha, but I can't let go of the devil. Then become a demon, said the demonic phantom. I also want to become a demon, but my heart belongs to the world. Jiangchen smiled bitterly. It seems that this abyssal cultivation method is not suitable for me to cultivate. Then Jiangchen made up his mind to abolish the abyssal method he had been practicing. However, at this moment, the two phantoms actually merged. After the fusion, a statue shining with Buddhist light appeared. His entire body flickered with Buddhist light, but the lotus platform he sat on was as black as ink. The eyes of the statue were scarlet red. If you don't become a Buddha or a devil, then you will become like this. A voice came from the statue. It was like the voice of the great Tao, ethereal and indistinct. What is this? Jiangchen asked. This is you, your heart. The statue said, the first volume of the abyssal cultivation method is to cultivate your heart. Only by following your heart can you cultivate the first volume. Then if I made a choice before and chose to become a Buddha or a devil, what would the result be? Jiangchen asked. Then you will not be suitable to cultivate the abyssal cultivation method. Your cultivation will be crippled, said the statue. As soon as these words came out, Jiangchen could not help but break out in a cold sweat. He did not expect that cultivating the abyssal cultivation method would be so dangerous. If he was not careful, his cultivation would be crippled. Fortunately, Jiangchen's heart was firm. So there was this statue. Cultivate kindness, cultivate disgust, cultivate a heart of the Tao. The heart exists forever. The soul exists forever. The strength is inexhaustible. The will is indestructible. All strength, move according to the heart. At this point, the first volume of the abyssal cultivation method, Mahayana, Jiangchen felt very strange. After all, this statue was his heart. And at this moment, he was communicating with his heart. And this statue, after saying these words, turned into a black and white rune and engraved into Jiangchen's soul. In an instant, Jiangchen could feel that his strength had increased by a large margin. The heart is complete, the strength is complete. Jiangchen whispered. With his current strength, even if he faced a quasi-sage, he did not need to use the myriad transformation heavenly lamp. He was enough to fight. Then, Jiangchen's consciousness withdrew from the soul world and fell into a coma. The power of the divine physique circulated in his body, and the undying bird Tao soul emitted warm flames, constantly healing Jiangchen's injuries. 3 days later, Jiangchen slowly woke up. The first thing Jiangchen did after waking up was to use the contract to send a voice transmission to Bai Fengyu, asking about the situation. In the end, he learned that Bai Fengyu and the others had left the desolate God Tao Hall. This was because they had gone to the main palace. The battle there was too fierce, and the top prodigies of the 7 continents had all gathered there. It was said that the 6th prince and the 7th prince were already standing there. Even Yuan Cheng, in order to protect himself, followed a prodigy from the underworld continent. Nian Chang'e, Lu Chong, and Lu Suo returned to the Sky Connecting Palace and the Serene Connecting Palace. Everything here was of no interest to them. As for Jiang Lu, Wakako, and Xiao Qingyi, the 3 of them had disappeared. Disappeared? Jiangchen frowned. The 3 of them suddenly disappeared. Did something happen to them? But that should not be the case. The 3 of them were very strong. Unless they encountered those top geniuses, how many people would be able to stand up to them with their strength? Perhaps the 3 of them should have hidden temporarily. Dao Gui and Zhao Mujio did not go to the main palace. They have the freedom technique and the Taoist 9 syllables. The desolate god's inheritance is not attractive to them. Bai Fengyu said, they are looking for other opportunities and opportunities in other places. Okay, got it? Jiangchen said softly. Then, he rushed out from the ground. After tidying himself up, he rose into the air and flew toward the center of the desolate god's training ground, toward the main palace. His eyes flashed with a cold light, and his aura surged like a rainbow. In my previous life, you died for me by igniting the ever-changing heavenly lamp. In this life, I will protect you until you become a god, Jiang Chan said softly. Half a day later, at the desolate god's training ground, 100 miles away from the main palace, Jiang Chen stopped here because he saw someone fighting in the direction of the main palace. There were two young men. One of them was wearing a dragon robe, and the other was wearing an ordinary gray robe. The two of them fought in the air. Their auras were extremely strong, and the people around them did not interfere. Wearing a dragon robe? Which dynasty's prince is he? Jiang Chen said softly. The first thing that came to his mind was the Zhongzhou dynasty. After all, the most powerful dynasty in the godless continent was the Zhongzhou dynasty. This dynasty had unified the entire Zhongzhou. Even the martial pavilion did not dare to be too presumptuous in the Zhongzhou dynasty. As for the young man in the gray robe, Jiang Chen could not figure out why. However, the two of them were very strong. Their cultivation had reached the level of a quasi-sage. Jiang Chen could even feel that there was a seal in their bodies. Once the seal was broken, the cultivation of the two of them would immediately enter the sage realm and become sages. The two of them should be the top group of people who had entered the desolate god's training ground. Chapter 315. It was said that the main palace contained the inheritance of the desolate god, and the person who obtained the inheritance would be able to unify the godless continent. Even Jiang Chen was very interested in the inheritance of the desolate god. However, Jiang Chen did some calculations and found that he had gotten enough inheritances by then. A drop of blood essence of the great transformations deity king, the abyssal that the man under the Bodhi ancient tree taught him, and some of his own things. With so many things, it was enough for him to cultivate for a lifetime. Some things were fine as long as they were enough. If there were too many, it would overflow like water in a water tank. And this time, Jiang Chen came to the main palace, not for the inheritance of the desolate god, but to kill. Jiang Chen would not let go of those who wanted to kill Jiang Yueli. Those who wanted to kill him would also be dealt with today. As for the inheritance of the desolate god, Jiang Chen did not care, but he also wanted to know more about the desolate god. After all, the desolate god was too mysterious. Even in the ninth heaven divine world, it was difficult to hear about the desolate god. That man was like a mystery. He was at the peak of his cultivation and disappeared after reaching the peak. No one knew where he went. Only legends and the desolate god's training ground were left behind. The desolate god suddenly disappeared. The Dong Sheng dynasty disappeared overnight, and so did the Jiugong temple. Is all of this a coincidence? Jiang Chen thought of many things. He guessed that behind all this, there might be an invisible giant hand controlling all of this. If that was the case, then who was the one behind all of this? Was his strength above the deity? Jili Prince lost? At this moment, in the direction of the main palace, there were exclamations. Looking up, the young man in the dragon robe fell from the sky and was then protected by a group of people. The young man in the gray robe stood in the air with a smile on his face. He looked at Jili Prince and said, "Thank you for letting me win. 10 Ghost Descendant, the disciple of Shu Ge." Jili Prince said in a deep voice. When he fought with the young man in the gray robe, he felt that something was wrong. It was not until the last blow when the young man in the gray robe used the unique technique of Shu Ge that he knew the identity of the other party. "Master, it is Shu Ge." The gray-robed young man didn't hide his identity and replied, "I'm here to look for my junior brother, martial demon successor. Jiang Lu, did you see it?" When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but shake their heads, indicating that they had never seen it before. However, there were also people who had seen Jiang Lu before, but they didn't say anything. This was because the matter of the 10 ghosts involved too many people, and no one was willing to be implicated. The Ninely dynasty is too weak. Why don't you submit to the Central Continent dynasty? At this moment, a young man in a flood dragon robe stepped forward. He held a golden long sword in his hand. His eyes shone with a sharp light and carried a trace of insufferably arrogance. This person was the third prince of the Central Plains imperial dynasty, Li Fengyuan. This time, apart from the first prince, the other princes of the central continent had all come to the desolate god dojo. But now, the Central Plains imperial dynasty had already lost 3 princes. This infuriated the people of the Central Plains imperial dynasty, especially the third prince. If he didn't express his stance and didn't do anything at the desolate god's dojo, he wouldn't be able to explain himself when he returned. The Central Plains imperial dynasty has already lost 3 princes. The ninely prince said coldly, "Take care of yourselves first." "Oh, is that so?" Li Fengyuan raised his eyebrows and pointed the long sword in his hand at the ninely prince. He said disdainfully, "If you don't kill the injured when you recover from your injuries, I'll let you know if the crimson dragon in my hand can kill you." The ninely prince. "I say, I'm asking you, who has seen my junior brother?" At this moment, the gray-robed young man standing in the air frowned and looked at Li Fengyuan. "You have so many subordinates, but have you seen my junior brother, Jiang Lu?" "Are you talking to me?" Li Fengyuan raised his eyebrows. "Do you think a lowly person like you is qualified to talk to me?" "Oh, is that so?" Li Fengyuan's eyes suddenly turned cold, and 7 types of spells appeared around him. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth, light, and darkness, like brilliant suns, floated around him. The 10 ghosts, the most wanted criminal on the godless continent. As the descendant of the technique ghost, you are also a wanted criminal. Li Fengyuan said coldly, "It's not too much to kill you. The third prince of the Central Plains imperial dynasty, right?" Suddenly, an extremely cold voice full of killing intent came from afar. Then, Wakako and Jiang Lu walked over and stood beside the gray-robed young man. At this moment, the killing intent in Jiang Lu's eyes became more intense. "The people who sent people to kill us are all your subordinates, right?" Jiang Lu said coldly. "Humph, don't send those ants next time." "Junior brother, are you okay?" The gray-robed young man frowned as he smelled blood from Jiang Lu's body. It was not the enemy's blood, but Jiang Lu's blood. Obviously, Jiang Lu was injured. Next to him, Wakako had lost an arm. Now, the wound was emitting purple divine light, and it was being reconstructed. The general trend is irresistible. The ants of the barren state want to touch the desolate god's training ground? Li Fengyuan said contemptuously. "After killing you, everything will be clean, and you will be an eyesore. Kill us? Do you have the ability?" Jiang Lu raised his eyebrows. He was usually simple and honest, but now he was filled with killing intent. Previously, after they separated from Jiang Chun, they were ambushed halfway. If it weren't for Ruo Xiao and Jiang Lu being strong enough to forcefully open up a path of blood, they would have been killed by those people. Now, Jiang Lu and Wakako were here for revenge. However, Jiang Lu knew that he was not Li Fengyuan's opponent. However, Jiang Lu was not the only one who entered the desolate god's training ground this time. Among the 10 ghost descendants, there was another one, and that was the gray-robed young man, Tu Qiong. "Junior brother, this Li Fengyuan is very strong. I'm also not his opponent." Tu Qiong smiled bitterly. "Why don't we retreat first?" "Ah!" Jiang Lu heard this and could not help but be stunned, feeling surprised. He did not expect that Tu Qiong could not beat Li Fengyuan. However, looking at Tu Qiong's expression, it did not seem like he wanted to retreat. Could it be thinking of this? Jiang Lu's eyes lit up. He looked around and muttered, "Could it be that another senior brother came in? What are you looking for?" "Senior brother is here." At this moment, from the crowd below, an average-looking young man with a staff in his hand walked out. He flew into the air and landed beside Jiang Lu and the others. Then, with a wave of his hand, a ray of holy light appeared on the staff. The holy light sprinkled down like a spring rain. Wherever it passed, Jiang Lu's injuries were instantly healed. Even Wakako's broken arm was being reconstructed at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Shepherd God! Wet nurse!" Below, there were continuous exclamations. Even Li Fengyuan frowned, feeling troubled. Shepherd God was an extremely rare profession. This profession's combat strength was average, but it could use its own spiritual energy to heal others. Moreover, the healing speed was astonishing. With a shepherd god on the side, unless the enemy was killed in one blow, the shepherd god would heal them. You guys go ahead and fight. I'm here. The young man smiled. I can't fight, but I'm quite good at healing the wounded. Chapter 316. I'd like to see how capable you samurai descendants are, Li Fengyuan said coldly. He waved his hand and shouted angrily, Kill! Kill! In an instant, those who followed Li Fengyuan rushed out, including Yuan Cheng. In an instant, more than 20 people rushed toward Jianglu and the others with majestic auras. Kill! Wakako was the first to rush out. His severed arm had been reconstructed. He opened his fists wide, and the fist aura was like a purple dragon rushing out. Jianglu followed closely behind. His strong body was like a human-shaped dragon. After rushing into the crowd, his fists and palms collided and pushed out. Tu Qiong stood in the distance, his hands constantly moving. 7 types of spells rained down like a storm. The shepherd god stood at the back with a smile on his face. The staff in his hand flickered with multicolored light, sprinkling down on Jianglu and the others. In an instant, Jianglu and Wakako completely gave up on defense. Their attacks were bold and fierce. One was the heavenly tyrant body, and the other was the immemorial sacred body. Their bodies were extremely strong. Now, with the shepherd god's blessing and healing, the two of them were almost invincible. Allowing the attacks to land on their bodies, Ruo Xiao and Jianglu remained unmoved. Even the injuries they suffered were healed in an instant. Kill that shepherd god. Li Fengyuan didn't make a move. Instead, he ordered the few dark masters around him. In his eyes, he didn't need to do anything to deal with Jianglu and the others. Whoosh! However, at this moment, a snow-white sword aura shot from a distance, like a shocking blow, and directly pierced Yuan Cheng's forehead. Li Fengyuan focused his eyes and looked into the distance. He saw Jiang Chun holding a sharp sword and walking in the air. Jiang Chun from Chuanzuan sect, Jiang Chun whispered. He looked around and finally locked his eyes on Xiao Wanyu in the crowd. Next to Xiao Wanyu was one-armed from Sword Gate Pass, and the group of people who wanted to kill Jiang Yueli in the Sword Catacomb. These people had joined forces. After all, it was very difficult to obtain anything by himself in the main hall. In fact, it was very likely that he would be killed. I'm here for them, Jiang Chun said softly, ignoring Li Fengyuan as he charged toward Xiao Wanyu and the others. Jiang Chun, this was the main palace. No one will help you. Xiao Wanyu shouted angrily. You're just an exalted realm cultivator. Do you really think you can go against us? You'll know when you try, Jiang Chun said softly. His figure had already rushed in front of Xiao Wanyu. In an instant, everyone saw a sword beam rise into the sky like a white lightning snake, and sword flowers bloomed. With one slash, the sky and earth changed color. The white sword in Jiang Chen's hand was like a living creature, dancing gracefully. 9 Heavens Sword Dance. Accompanied by a long roar, Jiang Chen's body danced, and the sword beam slashed out in a dazzling manner. Like a huge net, it enveloped Xiao Wanyu. In terms of sword Dao, I'm not weaker than anyone. Xiao Wanyu was arrogant, as he slashed out 18 times with the sword in his hand. The 18 sword beams were like dragons, swallowing and spitting out rays of light. Sword will erupted like an invisible gale, whistling and wantonly. The sword net was cut into pieces. The 18 sword beams were like a hot knife through butter, heading straight for Jiang Chun. However, at this moment, Jiang Chun was dancing like a banished immortal. Around him, above his head, and even above the clouds, sword flowers formed. The sword flowers fluttered and fell. However, at that moment, the sword flowers collapsed. It was like a flower blooming and withering, and all other flowers were defeated. The 18 sword beams disappeared along with it. Poof! In the next moment, before everyone could react, Jiang Chun moved horizontally in front of Xiao Wanyu. He raised the sword in his hand high and then gently slashed it down. Bestowment liberation. With a soft shout, the snow-white sword slashed down. The protective spiritual energy on Xiao Wanyu's body was slashed apart as if it was nothing. Then, an arrow pierced through Xiao Wanyu's heart and his chest exploded. Sword chi rose wantonly in his body. In just 3 breaths' time, Xiao Wanyu's body collapsed and he died on the spot. When Sword Gate Guan and the rest saw this, they no longer had the courage to fight Jiang Chun. They retreated and fled into the distance. Do you know the name of this sword? Jiang Chun stood where he was and did not chase after them. Instead, he stroked the sword in his hand and said softly, "This sword, chasing heaven." Swoosh! The moment he finished speaking, the sword in Jiang Chun's hand shot out. It was like a snow-white thunderbolt, flashing continuously in the air. In 3 breaths' time, the sword caught up with Sword Gate Guan's one-armed and pierced through his glabella, slashing him into the air. Then, the sword turned and slashed towards the other people. After a dozen breaths' time, none of the remaining people survived. They all died under the Chasing Heaven sword. Chasing Heaven? The weapon of Tian Chen Divine King? Impossible! Legend has it that Chasing Heaven ascended to the 9 heavens divine world with Tian Chen Divine King. How could it be in the godless continent? Exclamations were incessant, especially after hearing the 2 words Chasing Heaven. Greed flashed in the eyes of the group. Yeah, even I didn't know why Chasing Heaven would be in the desolate God Dao field. Jiang Chun said softly and frowned. He already had doubts in his heart. Back then, when Jiang Chun ascended, he brought Chasing Heaven to the 9 heavens divine world. Until his death, Chasing Heaven was still in his hands. Then, after Jiang Chun's death, why would Chasing Heaven come to the godless continent? And why would it appear in the desolate God Dao field sword tomb? Previously, if Jiang Chun did not have a connection with Chasing Heaven, Jiang Chun would not dare to believe that he would meet Chasing Heaven here. How can an ordinary person like you possess a weapon that Tian Chen Divine King once used? Hand it over. At this moment, several geniuses who used swords walked towards Jiang Chun. Sword light flickered in their eyes, and there was even more greed. Even Li Fengyuan frowned. He lowered his head and glanced at his crimson dragon sword, seemingly somewhat disdainful. "This sword can only be used by me," Jiang Chun said softly. Chasing Heaven had already returned to his hand. The sword was personally forged by Jiang Chun. The sword spirit was also nurtured by Jiang Chun with his blood essence. Although he did not know why, the power of Chasing Heaven was far inferior to before. However, the only person who could use Chasing Heaven in this world was him, Jiang Chun. What's the situation in this generation's barren state? Experts are emerging in large numbers, and they can actually compete with the geniuses of other large states. Could it be that history is about to repeat itself? In this generation, the barren state is going to rise and unify the godless continent again? Many people's hearts palpitated, and a trace of confusion flashed across their eyes. Since ancient times, only the barren state had unified the godless continent. Even the blue-eyed white dragonback then was born in the barren state. Moreover, some experts in history, the supreme experts who had once unified the godless continent, all came from the barren state without exception. This was hard to imagine and hard to understand. Why were the creatures who could unify the godless continent all from the barren state? Someone once said that it's impossible for the barren state to rise again. I heard that for some reason, the barren state's fate dragon vein was severed by someone. The barren state's fate has run out. Logically speaking, it's impossible for so many geniuses to appear, much less be so strong. Some people knew some secrets and were secretly communicating. And at this moment, Jiang Chun stood in the air, looking at the 3 quasi-saint sword masters in front of him, and said mockingly, "With your realm, I should call you sword saints, right?" Chapter 317. It's good that you know. What right do you have to use Tian Shun's Celestial King's weapon? Hand it over, and I'll spare your life. The three of them looked contemptuous as sword intent rose from their bodies. The three of them stood there like three peerless swords, giving off a feeling of sharpness. However, Jiang Chun was very calm. With chasing heaven in his hand, he waved his hand and drew a sword flower in front of him. He smiled and said, "If you want chasing heaven, you can take it with your strength. Why waste your breath? You're courting death. If that's the case, we'll kill you and take chasing heaven," the three of them said in a low voice. Immediately, sword intent soared into the sky, and three terrifying sword beams surged towards Jiang Chun like a river. When Jiang Chun saw this, he kept chasing heaven and formed seals with both hands. Three defensive arrays were formed in succession. The sword light smashed onto the formations, causing a series of explosions to erupt. Moreover, in just 3 breaths of time, 3 formations were slashed apart. However, these 3 breaths' time were enough for Jiang Chun. Avatar. At this moment, 3 clones appeared beside Jiang Chun, one after the other. They dashed toward the 3 people. As for Jiang Chun himself, he stood in the distance and cast his water and lightning elemental spells. A water dragon leaped out of the void, bringing with it a biting cold frost. Wherever it passed, everything was frozen and sealed in ice. Following that, a lightning bolt flashed and chased after the water dragon. In the next second, the water dragon crashed down and exploded in front of the 3 of them. Fog exploded in the sky. The lightning bolt rushed in and connected with the water. Instantly, the 3 of them were electrocuted and a burnt smell spread. Dark elemental, dark sky. Without waiting for the 3 of them to react, Jiang Chun formed seals with both hands again. A black fog descended, and like a dark sky, it enveloped the 3 of them. Instantly, the 3 of them lost their senses and could not tell their direction. All they could see was endless darkness. Light elemental, purification. Before the 3 of them could rush out of the black fog, a mysterious light like the sun enveloped the 3 of them. In an instant, their expressions changed drastically as they felt the strength in their bodies weakening. In merely 3 breaths of time, the 3 people's cultivation fell from second stage to low-level heaven realm, and it was still falling. Earth element, earth collapse spike. Fire element, robin. Wood type, big tube. Jiang Chun didn't give the 3 of them a chance to catch their breaths. He continued to cast spells. Spells rained down on the 3 of them like a torrential storm. A dozen breaths later, the metal elemental technique descended, and thousands of sharp swords pierced through the 3 of them, killing them on the spot. Holy **T. Didn't he use a sword? How can he know magic? 7 types of spells. All of them, dual cultivation and swordsmanship. Are you stupid? He is clearly a triple cultivator of swordsmanship and martial arts. Are you blind? Didn't you see the array formation I set up earlier? It's the 4 cultivators of sword arts, martial arts, and array. The crowd exclaimed in astonishment. Even Li Fengyuan and the others were startled. It was already difficult for ordinary people to cultivate one profession. Only a few geniuses could cultivate 2 professions at the same time. As for triple cultivators, they were even rarer and almost impossible to find. There were only a handful of people who could cultivate 4 professions in this world. You are already so powerful at upper-level venerable realm. If you grow up, Li Fengyuan muttered to himself. The crimson dragon in his hand roared, and his aura surged. He had decided to attack. However, at this moment, all of his subordinates were killed by Jianglu and the others. At the same time, Jianglu and the others charged toward Li Fengyuan. I am not afraid of fighting all of you alone. Li Fengyuan was extremely powerful. He didn't retreat in the face of Wakako and the others who were charging toward him. He held the crimson dragon in his hand and charged upward. A sword ray that looked like a 5-clawed golden dragon shot out. Jianglu didn't retreat when he saw that. He formed a fist with both hands and punched out. Boom! However, the fist ray was shattered by an explosion. The sword ray didn't slow down and directly slashed Jianglu's body. Poof! Immediately, a deep wound appeared on Jianglu's chest. Even his heart had been shattered. Moreover, the wound spread down and went straight to Jianglu's dantian. He was going to cripple Jianglu. Bless the common people. The shepherd god's eyes narrowed. He pointed the staff in his hand at Jianglu. A ray of holy light fell and stabilized Jianglu's injury. At the same time, a lightning elemental spell, like a giant palm, fell toward Li Fengyuan. Wakako also attacked. He punched down. The power of the heavenly tyrant body was like a ferocious beast roaring out. Do you need my help? Jiang Chun smiled and said, I don't think I need to do anything to deal with him, right? Li Fengyuan was very powerful, but Jianglu and the others weren't weak either. Moreover, with the shepherd god here, Jiang Chun didn't think that Jianglu and the others would lose. However, just as he finished speaking, he saw a tall and sturdy young man appear beside Li Fengyuan. With the appearance of this person, the sky changed color. This person's aura was too powerful. Although he was only a quasi-saint, the aura he emitted was comparable to that of a true sage. The second prince of the Zhou Empire, Li Fengzi. He's the strongest among the princes of the Zhou Empire. It's said that he's even stronger than the prince. If he wasn't born after the prince, the second Prince Li Fengzi would be the next emperor of the Zhou Empire. Exclamations shook the sky. Some people even saluted Li Fengzi. As for Li Fengzi, he waved his hand and dispersed the lightning and Wakako's fist radiance. Then he stood in front of Li Fengyuan and said, the door of the main palace is about to open. Fighting now is equivalent to consuming one's spiritual energy. It's not good for entering the main palace. Li Fengyuan opened his mouth, but he didn't dare to say anything to his elder brother. What? Are you afraid? Wakako's eyes were purple. With a wave of his hand, the power of the heavenly tyrant body turned into a purple halberd. He was overbearing and domineering, never afraid of a battle. Once the battle started, he would fight to the death. I'll agree to a battle of the same level. But the gap between your cultivation and mine is too big. I won't bully you. Li Fengzi said softly, let's leave this matter for now. You think we'll let it go just because you said so? Who do you think you are? Jianglu shouted angrily. Li Fengyuan sent people to kill us. We haven't settled this debt yet. If I say we'll let it go, then we'll let it go. If you don't agree, I don't mind bullying the weak like you. Li Fengzi said softly, with the demeanor of an emperor. At the same time, his aura skyrocketed again, as if he was an emperor. At this moment, Wakako and Jianglu both felt the pressure, and their expressions turned ugly. Especially Jianglu, who asked Wakako honestly, can you beat him? Wakako was also stunned, and said bluntly no. What about me? Can I fight with you? At this moment, Jiang Qin came to Jianglu's side. He looked straight at Li Fengzi and said, since you don't want to bully us with your cultivation, why don't you suppress your cultivation? I'll fight with you at the upper level of the venerable realm. Do you dare? Chapter 318. Li Fengzi had the demeanor of a king and disdained to bully the weak. He was arrogant, but he had the strength to be arrogant. Even Wakako and Jianglu thought that they were no match for Li Fengzi. Of course, it wasn't that Wakako and Jianglu were weak, but that Li Fengzi's cultivation was too high. His cultivation had reached the level of a quasi-sage, and there was even a seal in his body. His true strength was probably already that of a sage. They were all geniuses, but a slight difference in cultivation level was like a chasm that was difficult to cross. If Wakako and Jianglu were both quasi-sages, Jiang Qin believed that they had the ability to fight with Li Fengzi. And now, of course, Jiang Qin, as the boss, had to make a move. However, if he fought with Li Fengzi in this situation, Jiang Qin wouldn't be Li Fengzi's opponent without using the forbidden technique. Even if he used the forbidden technique, With Li Fengzi's strength, it would be difficult for Jiang Chun to defeat him. Jiang Chun was confident. He was proud and aloof, but he was never arrogant. He would fight those who deserved to be fought, and he wouldn't fight those who didn't deserve to be fought. At this moment, Li Fengzi stared at Jiang Chun, and his eyes narrowed. He felt a trace of extraordinariness from Jiang Chun. At the same time, Li Fengzi had also heard of Jiang Chun's name. Although it wasn't very famous, he also felt that Jiang Chun must be very strong. Otherwise, why would Wakako the tyrant, Jianglu the martial ghost descendant, and Bai Fengyu the White Emperor's daughter follow Jiang Chun? It's good to fight at the same level, Li Fengzi said softly. Don't go too far. Oh, don't you want to fight to the death? Jiang Chun asked. The main palace's door is about to open, and I don't want to waste my strength here, Li Fengzi said directly. Moreover, I don't have any deep grudges with you. When these words came out, Jianglu and Wakako's eyes immediately turned red. The third prince Li Fengyuan had sent people to ambush them. If it weren't for their strength, they would have died long ago. This was an enmity of killing. However, in Li Fengzi's words, this great enmity had become a great enmity without any deep enmity. How could Wakako and Jianglu let this go? All right, let's stop here, Jiang Chun said with a smile. Boss, are we really going to stop here? Wakako and Jiang Chun frowned, not knowing what Jiang Chun was thinking. The grudge between them and the third prince and the second prince was a matter of life and death. Now, since they were going to start a war, why did they stop here? What was the difference between this and sparring? Since they couldn't fight to the death, this battle became meaningless in the eyes of Wakako and Jianglu. There are too many people here who want to kill us. Jiang Chun transmitted his voice. If Li Fengzi and I are both seriously injured, do you know how dangerous our situation will be? When Wakako and Jianglu heard this, their expressions froze. They looked around and realized that many people were looking at them with undisguised killing intent. We'll listen to you, boss, Jianglu said. At this moment, Li Fengzi suppressed his cultivation to the upper level of the venerable realm. In the next moment, the surrounding people dispersed and gave the two of them space to fight. I rarely fight with people of the same cultivation level. Li Fengzi said softly, I see that you're not bad, so I'll suppress my cultivation level to fight with you. Are you satisfied? Of course I'm satisfied. The second prince is generous, Jiang Chun said with a smile. Boom! The moment he finished speaking, Li Fengzi and Jiang Chun's eyes suddenly focused. Then, an extremely terrifying aura erupted from the two of them. The aura was like a rainbow, piercing through the clouds. Even the air around them was distorted. So strong. The aura of the upper level of the venerable realm is comparable to that of the upper level of the heavenly realm. This is a real monster. This generation of people from the barren state is really strong. There were exclamations all around. At the same time, Jiang Chun and Li Fengzi had already started fighting. Both of them rushed out like ferocious dragons. One man and one fist collided in midair like dragons emerging from the sea. One person's imperial dragon aura was like a rainbow, while the other person's entire body seemed to be made of gold. When the two fists collided, there was a loud explosion. Then, everyone saw that Jiang Chun and Li Fengzi were both sent flying. Jiang Chun was sent flying 3 steps back, while Li Fengzi was only sent flying 1 step. The difference in strength was obvious at a glance. Show me what you're best at. Li Fengzi had the upper hand, but his expression was not very good. This was because he could feel that Jiang Chun had not used his full strength in the previous punch. Was he looking down on him? As the second prince, Li Fengzi naturally could not accept this. I'm best at martial arts. Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. What about you? Same as you. Li Fengzi's eyes narrowed. He clenched his fists, and 2 dragon heads appeared on his fists. With a dragon's roar, Li Fengzi rushed out again. His imperial aura was like an emperor descending. There was no trace of fear in his eyes. He moved forward bravely, as if the world had to make way for him. Jiang Chen's expression turned serious. He also clenched his fists. His left hand gathered the light of the sun, and his right hand appeared the brilliance of the moon. Boom! Boom! In the next moment, both of their fists collided again. This time, the moon fist was shattered, and the sun fist dissipated. Jiang Chun was sent flying hundreds of meters away. However, at the same time, Li Fengzi was also sent flying. Moreover, this time, Li Fengzi was sent flying for nearly 1,000 meters. What? The second prince, Li Fengzi, is actually no match for Jiang Chun. Don't say it's so early. Li Fengzi's strength is not below Jiang Chun's. Both of them still have many martial arts techniques that they have not used. Everyone exclaimed with their eyes wide open. They could not believe that Li Fengzi was actually at a disadvantage. At the same time, Jiang Lu, Wakako, and the rest also had looks of disbelief on their faces. This was because in their eyes, Jiang Chun was invincible. They had seen Jiang Chun fight with others. Basically, it was a crushing defeat. He had never been beaten to such a state. You are very strong. If you are willing to follow me, the door of the Zhongzhou dynasty will be open for you forever. Li Fengzi shouted. His words were full of sincerity. Just as he said before, he valued Jiang Chun and cherished talent. The dynasty is too big and the rules are too strict. I'm just an independent cultivator. I better not go. Jiang Chun said softly. Wind blew under his feet. His figure moved horizontally, and his fist pressed down. Kid, my second brother values you so much. Don't fail to appreciate his kindness. Li Fengyuan rebuked angrily. How many people want to follow my second brother? That's others. Jiang Chun's hand movements did not stop at all. His fist was like a millstone, pressing down on Li Fengzi's head. Li Fengzi raised his head. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Then, he punched out with one hand. His entire arm seemed to have turned into a real dragon. Terrifying imperial qi exploded. Under the punch, the void was distorted as if it was about to be torn apart. Abyss separation. Jiang Chun did not dare to be careless. Under the punch, his other hand performed a martial technique, the abyss separation technique. In an instant, a yin-yang tai chi diagram appeared beside Jiang Chun. Under the countercurrent technique, it dissolved Li Fengzi's fist radiance. At the same time, his fist bombarded 3 inches away from Li Fengzi's head. Once again, it could not go any further. This was because, above Li Fengzi's head, a pure gold shield appeared. Dragon scale armor, Jiang Chun exclaimed softly. This was a Dao soul. It was ranked 18th and could be upgraded. Moreover, this dragon scale armor Dao soul was extraordinary. It was a twin Dao soul. Those who had the dragon scale armor Dao soul must have the dragon scale reverse sword Dao soul. Slash! At this moment, Li Fengzi waved his hand. Just as Jiang Chun expected, the dragon scale reverse sword Dao soul appeared in his hand. Along with a shout, a sword radiance exploded. Along with it, a shocking dragon roar could be heard. Chasing the heavens, Jiang Chun exclaimed. Chasing the heavens appeared in his hand. Then, he punched out a fist radiance and shattered Li Fengzi's sword radiance. Following that, chasing the heavens slashed down and a sword radiance as white as the moon fell. Clang! Li Fengzi moved sideways. At the same time, the dragon scale armor stood in front of him, blocking the chasing the heavens slash. Then, Li Fengzi formed a fist seal with his left hand. A vast dragon's aura exploded. The dragon's aura gathered and turned into a 5-clawed golden dragon. Then, along with the sword radiance of the dragon scale reverse sword, it charged towards Jiang Chun. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.